Chapter 390. What's wrong? You finally figured it out. You don't need to find so many excuses to kill me. You want to kill me? Do you think the two of you are qualified? Whoosh. Chu Yang's body shook, and a boundless quintessence burst out. The dense five-element quintessence formed a five-colored steel dome. It spun at a high speed, giving off a buzzing sound as it charged at the two. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, the five-element quintessence. His five-element quintessence has already formed a five-element cycle. He is actually trying to cultivate the 9 most basic quintessence. Whoosh. When the two Guardian Hall disciples saw Chu Yang's five-element quintessence burst out, their hearts trembled. They were so frightened that they kept retreating, not daring to make a move. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, the five-element quintessence seemed simple, but it was not. Only a handful of people could cultivate it in the entire five-element sect. Those who could completely grasp it, merge it, and form a five-element cycle were even rarer. The most shocking thing was that Chu Yang was clearly trying to cultivate the 9 most basic quintessence of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, light, and darkness. This was clearly a dead end. There was probably no one in the entire five-element sect who could do it. Perhaps only this Chu Yang before them could do it. This was simply too shocking. If the five-element sect's sect master knew about this, he would instantly take Chu Yang back as his last disciple. There would be no doubt about this. The Merit Palace Hall's disciples and elders were extremely frightened when they saw Chu Yang erupting with his five elements' real elemental energy. Even if Chu Yang were to kill them, his life wouldn't be in danger. At most, he would be severely punished. Cultivating five-element quintessence meant that Chu Yang could cultivate the five-element divine canon of the five-element sect. He might even become the next sect master of the five-element sect. If Chu Yang could cultivate the 9 most basic types of true essence and walk through this dead-end road of martial arts, then he would undoubtedly become the next five-element sect master. However, this still depended on whether he was willing or not. This was naturally the mentality of the two disciples of the Guardian's Hall. Chu Yang had scared them. "Huh! You dare to make a move? This is a capital offense. Don't waste your breath on him. Capture him and bring him to the elders." The two Guardian disciples were both frightened, angry, and worried. They had offended Chu Yang and would definitely not have a good ending. If Chu Yang grew up, they would definitely die. Amidst their fear, countless thoughts flashed through their minds. Evil thoughts grew in their hearts, all of them wanted to kill. They roared at the same time, their faces ferocious. In the blink of an eye, boundless true chi poured out from their bodies. It was as if they could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. They slapped towards Chu Yang, intending to kill him directly. As Guardian disciples, they all possessed extraordinary strength. Their cultivation of the first layer of the ascending soul tier completely erupted at this moment, not leaving the slightest bit of leeway. This move was immediately like a landslide and a tsunami, unstoppable. Death penalty. Humph. You want to kill me? You too have committed a capital offense, huh? Just as Chu Yang was about to make a move, because he used the five elements true chi, he suddenly realized that when the unknown person in the Huanmo mystery realm threw his pentagram anti-heaven star, the five-colored cover around his body twisted and turned into a pentagram. As it spun, it erupted with a supreme killing aura that could destroy and cut everything. It was extremely terrifying. Wang. The void faintly distorted as if it was about to be cut open, releasing the terrifying space-time storm hidden in the void. Boom. As soon as the true chi of the two sides collided, the two Guardian disciples felt as if their true chi was cut open like paper. Their bodies, martial souls, and even their essence, chi, and spirit seemed to be cut into powder at this moment. The sudden eruption of this terrifying aura from Chu Yang's body made the two of them feel as if they were about to destroy the world. In their eyes, the world seemed to be cut open and completely collapse. What exactly is this? It's so terrifying. Even the five elements true chi can't be so outrageous. The two Guardian disciples were scared out of their wits. They had never thought that Chu Yang would be so terrifying. They felt that in front of Chu Yang, they were as weak as babies, unable to withstand a single blow. Bang! 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 The explosion of true chi sent the two of them flying and they fell to the ground. Ignoring their injuries, they got up from the ground and flew out of the merit hall. At this time, the two of them felt a sharp pain in their internal organs, especially at their waist, where blood was gushing out. At first glance, they didn't know when there was a terrible wound there. They had just been blown away by the explosion, and if they had been a little slower, they would have been cut into two. Not only that, there were many deep wounds on their bodies, and their clothes were almost cut to pieces. How could it be so outrageous? It was even more terrifying than they had imagined. The two of them didn't even come into contact with Chu Yang. It was only the collision of their true elemental essences, but they had inexplicably suffered such a large area of injuries. They had even almost been cut into two halves, but Chu Yang hadn't done anything. So shocking. Chu Yang was also scared out of his wits. He would be in trouble if these two protectors were to be killed. Chu Yang, you are arrogant and arrogant, violently resisting the law. We will definitely report it to the elders. Just wait for the sect's punishment. You are disrespectful to the elders, and you attacked your senior brother. This is disrespect to your seniors, deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors. The evidence is irrefutable. Chu Yang, you are courting death. The two of them stood outside the door, shouting and yelling. However, they didn't dare to rush in again. At the same time, they pretended to run away, which was very ridiculous. They desperately tried to label Chu Yang because they were terrified to the extreme. If Chu Yang didn't die, they would die. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Chu Yang said with a threatening look in his eyes. Whoosh! The two of them fled like a ray of light, disappearing in an instant. They were terrified to the extreme. Humph! Chapter 391. Chu Yang swept his cold eyes over them. The disciples and elders of the Merit Palace Hall were all scared out of their wits. They fell down with a plop. They rolled on the ground and crawled to their feet. They crawled a long distance before they stopped. Only now do you know fear? Where did your previous manners go? Ta. Chu Yang took a step forward. That contribution hall disciple quickly got up and kowtowed. Bang! 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 Spare me, spare me, spare me. Senior brother Chu, please spare me. I was only following orders. I had no other choice. Please spare my dog life. The contribution hall disciple kowtowed until his forehead was dripping with blood. Is that so? Then tell me, whose orders did you follow? The contribution hall disciple did not answer immediately. When Chu Yang swept his cold gaze over, he was so scared that he fell to the ground and shouted, I'll speak. I'll speak. It was the Inner Peak's true inheritor, Zhao Yunlong. He said that this was the Burning Sky Holy Sun's order. How could I dare to disobey? Burning Sky Holy Sun. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed dangerously. He had actually provoked someone at the level of a saint. Are you sure? I don't seem to have any enmity with the Burning Sky Holy Sun. You better tell me the reason, or else. Ta. Chu Yang took another step forward, scaring that contribution hall disciple. He screamed in panic, Senior brother Chu, you don't have any enmity with the Burning Sky Holy Sun. However, Senior brother Chu's big brother, the unparalleled Holy Sun, is the Burning Sky Holy Sun's enemy. Previously, when the Holy Suns fought, the Burning Sky Holy Sun lost to the unparalleled Holy Sun. That Zhao Yunlong also has enmity with you, Senior brother Chu, for killing his father and destroying his family. There was no need for Chu Yang to interrogate him any further. This Merit Hall disciple spilled everything he knew without any hesitation. Zhao Yunlong. Chu Yang suddenly remembered the Zhao family of Coiling Dragon Town. This Zhao Yunlong is from the Zhao family of Coiling Dragon Town? Right. How could the disciple of the Virtuous Hall care about anything else? The most important thing now was to stay alive. If he was killed by Chu Yang, his death would be in vain. How could he not be afraid when the two disciples of the Hall of Protectors were so terrified? What about you? Chu Yang's cold gaze landed on the Grand Hall Elder, causing the Grand Hall Elder to tremble slightly. But at the end of the day, he was still an elder. Naturally, he wouldn't be as unbearable as the Grand Hall Elder. He's done. What do you want me to say? Tell me about the enmity between this burning heaven holy sun and my big brother. The burning sky saint child's name was Cao Wulong. He was a descendant of the Cao family, one of the great aristocratic families in the Wei nation. He entered the Five Elements sect by taking first place in the entrance exam. In less than a month's time, he shone brilliantly and entered the top 20 of the Hidden Dragon ranking. He was directly accepted as a successor disciple. As for the Hidden Dragon ranking, it was the Hidden Dragon ranking during the entrance exam. This ranking was based on the potential of the Five Element sect's disciples. Aside from the Hidden Dragon ranking, the Five Elements sect had two more important rankings, the Five Elements ranking and the Successor ranking. The Successor ranking was very simple. It was the ranking of the successor disciples' combat strength. Comparatively, the Successor ranking's evaluation was more detailed and comprehensive. The Five Elements ranking could be said to be the overall ranking of the Five Elements sect. All the Five Elements sect's disciples were recorded in it. It was based on the disciples' potential and true strength. Chu Yong roughly knew about this. However, he had just entered the Five Elements sect and had only been out training recently. He didn't have time to pay attention to these three rankings. The enmity between his big brother, Chu Fei, and the Burning Sky Saint Sun started from the Hidden Dragon ranking. Chu Fei entered the Five Elements sect 1 year after Cao Wulong, and Chu Fei surpassed Cao Wulong on the Hidden Dragon ranking the moment he entered the Five Elements sect. This caused Cao Wulong to be jealous, and he started to suppress and humiliate Chu Fei. Chu Fei had endured for a long time before erupting. First, he had a conflict with Cao Wulong in the Five Elements sect and was stopped by the elders. Then, he had defeated Cao Wulong in the ranking battle of the true disciples. Especially in the final battle of the Saint Sun position, Chu Fei had completely crushed Cao Wulong and trampled him under his feet. If you don't kill the snake will definitely hurt you. After Chu Yang heard the Merit Hall elder's words, he couldn't help but complain in his heart, since I humiliated him and fought with Cao Wulong to the death, I might as well get rid of him and keep him alive. Now, this young master is in trouble. Damn it, little Fei. The Burning Sky Saint Sun, a Saint Sun, had to be at least at the Ascending Soul Realm, which was the Soul Wheel Realm. Chapter 392. This is really going to kill me. Chu Yang suddenly felt as if he was treading on thin ice. In fact, he wasn't in the mood to deal with these two people from the Merit Hall. He lazily said, "Go and bring me my 15,000 merit points." Yes, yes, yes. The disciples from the Achievement Hall scrambled away. After Chu Yang obtained the 15,000 merit points, he immediately left. "Brother Chu, you're finally back." Chu Yang had just returned to the entrance of his courtyard when Chu Renxian came looking for him. His face was extremely pale. It was obvious that he was severely injured and hadn't recovered yet. Whoosh! A five-colored ray of light immediately appeared beside Chu Yang's feet. Lil Guori had come out after hearing the commotion. Chu Yang picked up Lil Guori and placed it on his shoulder. He couldn't help but frown and ask, "Brother Chu, who injured you?" "Ya." Before Chu Renxian could speak, Lil Guori cried out. It said that a person came to cause trouble a few days ago. He was very fierce, but he was ruthlessly beaten up by the array. Chu Yang roughly understood what happened. "Brother Chu, I'm afraid our East Arrival Pavilion will be disbanded," Chu Renxian said with a bitter smile when Lil Guori stopped. Establishing a faction was far from as simple as he imagined. He only recently understood that those who could establish their own factions were all geniuses. After so many years, there weren't any disciples who could establish their own factions. They all inherited or accepted their original factions. The new disciples wanted to establish their own factions. Simply put, Chu Yang had only left for a few days, but he couldn't hold on anymore. Black Wolf Gang? Chu Yang's first thought was that the Black Wolf Gang had come for revenge. No, it's a core disciple of our Divine Command Peak, the leader of the ferocious beast gang, Wang Zimo. Chu Renxian's face instantly darkened. He has a cultivation of the first level of the Ascending Soul Realm. I couldn't even take a single blow from him. If Brother Chu was present, I'm afraid our East Arrival Pavilion would have been disbanded. Fierce Beast Gang. Core disciple, first level of the ascending soul stage. Chu Yang roughly understood that it was normal for Chu Renxian to be unable to resist. He opened his mouth and said, "Tell me more about this Prince Mo." This Prince Mo is 2 realms earlier than us. He is the champion of the entrance exam of the previous 2 realms. He is extremely talented. Because of his talent, the original gang leader of the ferocious beast gang became a true disciple. After entering the inner peak, he passed the position of gang leader to him. The Crooked Blade Immortal explained, "The ferocious beast gang isn't one of the 3 major factions of our Divine Command peak, but they have been showing signs of catching up to us in recent years, especially after Wang Zimo became the gang leader." After that, Chu Renxian let out a long sigh. "Sigh, although I am very unwilling, there is really no other way. Also, Brother Chu, the reason why our East Arrival Pavilion hasn't been disbanded yet is because Prince Mo is waiting to teach you a lesson. He said that if you don't return in 3 days, he will beat the entire East Arrival Pavilion until half of our bodies are paralyzed. Beat them all until half of their bodies are paralyzed. Meet." Chu Yang snorted coldly. "He doesn't have the ability. Brother Chu, leave this Prince Mo to me. Don't worry." Chu Renxian looked at Chu Yang in disbelief. It wasn't that he doubted Chu Yang's strength. With Chu Yang's current strength, it was already very terrifying, but he didn't believe that Chu Yang could win against an ascending soul stage martial artist. "Don't worry. I will use this Prince Mo to establish the prestige of our East Arrival Pavilion. Let's see who dares to cause trouble in the future." Chu Yang even took care of the disciples of the Hall of Guardians, let alone a mere Prince Mo. Chu Yang wasn't worried about this Prince Mo. He was worried about the Burning Sky Holy Sun, Cao Wulong, and the Elder of the Hall of Guardians. If the Elder of the Hall of Guardians wanted to cause trouble for him, he thought it would be because he killed Duan Zhengji and the others. Chapter 393. The 2 disciples of the Guardian Hall and the others in the Merit Hall will probably spread the news about the talent I displayed in the Merit Hall. If they spread the news, with my talent, the 5 Elements sect will definitely focus on nurturing me. It will be even harder for them to kill me. At most, I will explode with all of my talent and become the focus of the 5 Elements sect. Let's see who dares to kill me then. However, this way, I will be targeted by the Burning Heaven Holy Sun even more. Chu Yang thought about the worst-case scenario and began to cultivate. In the Thunder space, his biggest gain was the improvement of his Sword Martial Spirit and Saber Martial Spirit. Currently, he didn't have many killing moves on him. Carefully counting, there were only 2, Wind-Chasing Life-Reaping Swords Yama style and Fragrant Elephants crossing the river, cutting off the flow. Buzz. Chu Yang directly used his Genius Martial Spirit to deduce. With a wave of his Genius Martial Spirit's hand, the universal manifestation apparatus instantly fell into the hands of his Genius Martial Spirit, becoming the assistance of his Genius Martial Spirit's deduction. In this way, the Genius Martial Spirit's consumption would be reduced by a lot, and the deduction time would be longer. The Genius Martial Spirit's intense deduction caused the universal manifestation apparatus to rotate at high speed, unexpectedly emitting a buzzing sound. At this moment, ripples could be seen spreading out from the center of Chu Yang's eyebrows. "Ya." Seeing this scene, Xiao Guari looked at the scene in the universal manifestation apparatus in Chu Yang's consciousness and cried out. Soon after, its pair of crystal-like eyes emitted 5-colored rays of light, unblinkingly falling on the universal manifestation apparatus. At this moment, on the universal manifestation apparatus, a fragrant elephant was crossing the river. Its huge body entered the river, and in an instant, the river seemed to come to a standstill. It was forcibly divided into 2 parts. The upper and lower flow both stopped at this moment. Swish! Suddenly, a saber shot out and pierced into the body of a fragrant elephant. The fragrant elephant suddenly emitted a boundless radiance. With a swish of its trunk, it seemed to have unleashed a heavenly saber that slashed horizontally into the sky. A ray of light clearly appeared above the sky, as if the sky was also split into 2 by this ray of light. Fragrant elephant crossing the river, cutting off the flow of the masses, cutting off the 3,000 strands of worry, cutting off everything, and obtaining great peace and bliss. It has the intention of cutting off distracting thoughts and cutting off the strands of worry. It completely complements the soul-severing gourd's soul-severing gourd. With the two combined, its power is greatly increased. It's a pity that this is just a deduction. I don't know how powerful it is exactly. The genius martial spirit turned the universal manifestation instrument, and the scene in the instrument immediately changed. A starry sky appeared, and a meteor streaked across the night sky. Yah! Little Guari cried out again and tugged at Chu Yang, telling him to slow down. He didn't even see it clearly just now. Chu Yang didn't have time to pay attention to this little cutie. 5 elements Zhen Yuan gushed out and a 5-colored flying knife appeared in his hand. Little Guari followed suit and stood up like a human. Its appearance was very funny and also very cute. A flying knife also appeared in its little paw. Swoosh swoosh, it threw the flying knife at the same time as Chu Yang. The two 5-colored flying knives were completely different. Chu Yang's flying knife was like a meteor. It was as fast as lightning and as heavy as a star. It also had an extremely sharp and destructive intent that could penetrate everything and destroy souls. Little Guari saw that its flying knife was at most like a flying arrow. It immediately cried out loudly and was very dissatisfied. It looked at Chu Yang with a look of worship. Its transparent eyes were eagerly looking at Chu Yang. This little guy is very ambitious and has a strong thirst for knowledge. Chu Yang used the genius martial spirit. Every second was extremely precious. However, at this time, he couldn't help but tap on little Guari's forehead and pass on his comprehension. Yah! Little Guari was very excited. It instantly condensed a 5-colored flying knife and threw it again. In an instant, the flying knife was like a meteor. It drew a 5-colored light in the void and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chapter 394. Yah! Xiao Guari nodded. Whoosh! At this moment, Chu Yang's figure blurred. In an instant, over 100 illusions appeared. The small courtyard seemed to be filled up at once. There were illusions everywhere. Then, with a whoosh, all the illusions disappeared. When he silently reappeared in the next moment, little Guari suddenly realized that Chu Yang was already outside the courtyard. There was already a 5-colored sword in his hand. The 5-colored sword's tip was suffused with a light and aura that made Xiao Guari's heart palpitate. When the light fell into Xiao Guari's transparent eyes, Xiao Guari felt as if the door to hell had opened. Ox head, horse face, black and white impermanence rushed out, followed by rolling ghost chi, and a shadow stepped out. Yah! If the king of hell wanted you to die at midnight, he wouldn't let you live until midnight. Chu Yang finally showed the king of hell's shadow. Xiao Guari was frightened by this shadow. Xiao Guari covered its eyes with its front paws and curled up into a ball. Bang bang bang! Then, a huge explosion fell into Xiao Guari's ears, and at the same time, a sharp wave of air hit Xiao Guari's body. Xiao Guari hurriedly looked, and a dazzling light pierced its eyes, making it almost unable to open them. Xiao Guari didn't know when Chu Yang had returned to the courtyard. At this moment, the 5 elements Zhen Yuan around Chu Yang's body surged, and when they collided with each other, sharp waves of air exploded, bursts of dazzling light. At the same time, the 5 elements Zhen Yuan actually connected after the violent collision, forming a 5-point star outside Chu Yang's body. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Xiao Guari's claws were abnormally sharp, and in an instant, it drew a diagram of the 5 elements on the ground. Suddenly, the 5-colored light in its eyes shone brightly. Immediately, the 5-colored Zhen Yuan in its body surged out, and there were continuous explosions. Sharp waves of air rushed out, and the 5-colored light shone. Buzz! The 5-colored 5-point star outside Xiao Guari's body was formed, and with Xiao Guari as the center, it rotated at a high speed, making buzzing sounds. The 5 points of the 5-point star were like blades of destruction, and when it rotated, it seemed to be able to cut everything. Yah! Xiao Guari was so excited that it jumped up and down. Chu Yang couldn't help but be shocked. Previously, Xiao Guari had the quintessential yuan of the 5 elements and was able to condense the 5-colored flying dagger. Now, Chu Yang had never expected that Xiao Guari would be able to learn this technique so quickly. This was something that Chu Yang had created after analyzing the pentagram anti-heaven star and using the 5 elements true essence. Looks like Lil Guari is a beast that is proficient in the 5 elements. However, I don't know what kind of beast it is. When I have time, I'll go and find out. The saber and sword martial spirit had obtained the essence of the soul-severing gourd and had the intent of severing souls. Naturally, Chu Yang had a deep understanding of it and integrated it into his saber and sword martial arts, greatly increasing their power. Next was the pentagram anti-heaven star. The power displayed by the Virtuous Achievement Hall was already extremely shocking, and now it was even more so. So much so that Chu Yang did not know how powerful the pentagram was. However, the more he comprehended, the more extraordinary he felt it was. Who is that person in the Huanmo secret territory? Why did he ask me to be careful of the sect leader of the 5 Elements sect? Unable to figure it out, Chu Yang could only put it aside and began to organize the various fragments of understanding in the thunder space. He became calmer and various scenes began to appear in the universal illumination instrument. The Hellfire Evil Dragon's innate ability to control fire, light, and heavy control. The Sky Thunder Beast's self-destruction. The fragments of understanding were like small streams that gathered together and gradually formed a surging river. Immediately, a twisting and extremely unstable light ball appeared in Chu Yang's hand. His mind was filled with the scene of the Sky Thunder Beast's self-destruction. How to make it explode? Suddenly, the peculiar structure of the lightning earthfire fruit leaped into his consciousness. Shortly after, the seemingly unstable ball of light in his hand transformed into an unstable lightning earthfire fruit. Within it, there were 2 unstable balls of light that were constantly twisting and turning. One was fire, and the other was earth. As the earth true energy and fire true energy flowed into the fruit, the 3 unstable light balls twisted and turned even more. Suddenly, they expanded violently and emitted a terrifying energy that made Chu Yang's heart palpitate. Not good. It's going to explode. Ya's voice also entered Chu Yang's ears. He glanced over and saw that Ya's paw also had a light ball that was exactly the same as his, but 1 size smaller. Chapter 395. Xiao Guari, hurry up and throw it. Chu Yang took the lead and threw the light ball in his hand into the air. Xiao Guari did the same. It had also sensed great danger. As soon as it threw it, 2 light balls, 1 big and 1 small, instantly burst out with blazing light in the air. They were like 2 suns, 1 big and 1 small, constantly twisting and distorting. Then, suddenly, they violently expanded. Boom! 2 loud sounds rang out, shaking Chu Yang's eardrums to the point of pain. A strong wind blew, and the light was extremely dazzling. He almost couldn't open his eyes. He could only faintly see that the formation he had set up in the courtyard had lit up at this time. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. In an instant, the sky shook and the earth shook. Chu Yang and Xiao Guari were both sent flying, and when the storm passed, the 2 of them looked at each other, stunned. The sword shadow formation protecting the courtyard could be killed by the 3rd layer of the ascending soul realm, but now, it was completely destroyed. Chu Yang's small courtyard was also completely razed to the ground. At the place of the explosion, there was a huge crater below. Hiss! Chu Yang couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was the explosion in the air, and it didn't come into direct contact with the formation. However, not only was the formation directly destroyed, it actually blew up such a huge and deep crater on the ground. How shocking was this power? Haha, another killing move. I reckon that the 5th layer of the ascending soul realm will be blown to death. A pleasant surprise. After Chu Yang recovered from his shock, he said to Xiao Guari, let's go to other places to set off the firecrackers. Shoo! The 2 figures flashed quickly, and in a short while, they arrived at the edge of a cliff on the Divine Command Peak. Soon, the man and the beast condensed a distorted light ball, and then happily threw it down the cliff. Boom! 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 Below the cliff, a series of loud explosions rang out. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Hearing such loud explosions, Chu Yang and little Guari were having a lot of fun. The 2 of them became more and more familiar with the distorted light balls they condensed. They constantly threw them down the cliff. There were continuous explosions and loud rumbles. Smoke and dust soared into the sky from the cliff, completely covering the radiance of the mountain protecting formation. It was only when the entire mountain range of the Divine Command Peak started to shake and tremble, an endless radiance of the formation erupted from the bottom of the cliff, did Chu Yang realize that something was wrong. When he focused his vision and looked down the cliff, he discovered that there was a huge hole in the mountain protecting array formation at the bottom of the cliff. The mountain protecting array formation was destroyed by the two of them. The situation. Run. Run. Xiao Guari, we have to leave quickly, or we'll be hung up and beaten. Whoosh. As soon as Chu Yang moved, he suddenly staggered. He was too excited just now, and didn't care about the consumption of his qi at all. As he crazily absorbed the energy of heaven and earth to replenish himself, he also crazily consumed his qi. Only now did he realize that the qi in his body was almost completely depleted. This thing was extremely powerful, and its consumption was extremely shocking. Xiao Guari also had the same general appearance as Chu Yang. Xiao Guari, we have to crawl away, or something will really happen. Whoosh. The two of them fled frantically, and soon disappeared without a trace. They returned to the courtyard that had been razed to the ground. A man and a beast were laughing heartily. Chu Yang felt as if he had returned to his childhood in his previous life, and had become a troublemaker. Who bombed my courtyard? Who wants to kill me? Chu Yang roared furiously, and his voice instantly spread far and wide. Xiao Guari also cried out at the side. The two of them were like troublemakers, trying their best to cover up and quibble. When the two of them bombed their courtyard to the ground, they had already alarmed the entire Divine Command Peak. Many disciples hurried over to their courtyard, but they only saw the ruins before they heard the sound of explosions from the other side. Many disciples thought that something big had happened, and they all dared to go over. Many disciples even came out of seclusion. Chapter 396. While Chu Yang and little Guari were making a fuss, Sui Yunfu's furious roar resounded through the entire Divine Command Peak. However, it was obvious that Sui Yunfu's voice was much louder than theirs. Not only did it alarm the 10 outer peaks of the 5 Elements sect, even the 5 inner peaks were alarmed. At this moment, the two of them knew that this fellow was in big trouble. They couldn't help but look at each other. Yah. Little Guari was obviously a standard obedient child. It quickly lowered its head and pulled Chu Yang to admit its mistake as if it had committed a great sin. Idiot. Chu Yang smacked it on the head. You'll be rewarded if you admit your mistake. You look so delicious, but they'll pull out your hair and skin, cut open your stomach, boil you, roast you, and eat you. They'll even chew your bones and eat your marrow. They'll definitely eat you until there's nothing left of you. He directly scared little Guari. Yah. Little Guari expressed its doubts. No way. How can you refuse to admit your mistake like this? Why not? Chu Yang polluted its pure heart again. This world is dark, and people are evil. You're always so innocent and pure. It gives me a headache. Little Guari directly lowered its head and stopped talking. It was sullen. In any case, it felt that it was wrong not to admit its mistake. Chu Yang was at a loss of what to do. Who taught such an honest, righteous, and kind-hearted baby? However, there was no room for discussion. Chu Yang directly suppressed little Guari and drew a circle around it. I did all of this. It has nothing to do with you. You don't have to look at your conscience. Just look at my conscience. Anyway, you can't leave this circle. After that, Chu Yang immediately went out to complain. He played out his own assassination and persecution theory to the extreme. He also cursed, saying that Ender was a bastard. He killed people to pick up girls. He lacked skill. The burning heaven holy sun was a coward. He only knew how to bully small shrimps. He only knew how to shrink his head when he saw crabs. He was a coward. Chu Yang also cursed the 5 Elements sect. He said that the 5 Elements sect was simply a devil sect. He even said that the 5 Elements sect couldn't be a proper person. Sui Yunfu appeared with a dark face and directly beat up Chu Yang. Then, Chu Yang obtained a small courtyard. On purpose, Chu Yang entered the line of sight of the people from Five Elements sect. Soon after, everything about Chu Yang was dug out. The Huanmo secret territory showed off its might and defeated the alliance of the two regions. When he clashed with the older disciples, a white flood dragon appeared. The Virtuous Contributions Hall was about to take action and deal with the disciples of the hall. Many things were dug up, but the most important and explosive thing was that Chu Yang was the younger brother of the former unparalleled saint child, Chu Fei. This news was very explosive, and Chu Yang's identity completely confirmed Chu Yang's persecution theory. No wonder this Chu Yang didn't dare to become a core disciple. He didn't have a good time in the inner sect. Otherwise, he would have established the so-called East Arrival Pavilion. How could he have a good time? That's weird. He even fought in the Achievement Grand Hall. It's obvious how much he was forced. Fortunately, he was smart and didn't become a core disciple directly. Otherwise, with his strength, he wouldn't even be left with a speck of dust among the core disciples. The Five Elements sect disciples discussed a lot, and they all seemed to be well aware of it. However, no one mentioned Ndehu, not to mention the Burning Sky Saint Child, Cao Wulong. As for what happened to Ndehu and Cao Wulong, Chu Yang didn't know. What he knew was that by bringing the things hidden in the dark out into the open, the number of people paying attention to him instantly increased. The ferocious beast gangs Wang Zimo had bullied the East Arrival Pavilion and intended to challenge Chu Yang. This matter suddenly changed. Many people thought that Ndehu and the others had ulterior motives. As a result, this battle attracted the attention of many people, and the disciples of each peak knew about it. Chapter 397. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 3 days, the new East Arrival Pavilion had become the focus of attention of many disciples of the Divine Command Peak. There were even many higher-ups of the Divine Command Peak who expressed their interest. Chu Yang's identity as the younger brother of the former unparalleled saint child, Chu Fei, was the most important reason. There was also another reason. The appearance of the East Arrival Pavilion was like a stream of fresh water being poured into the stagnant pool that was the Five Elements sect. For many years, no new disciple could establish their own faction in the Five Elements sect. Therefore, no matter if it was the elders or disciples of the Five Elements sect, they all wanted to see if the younger brother of the unparalleled saint child, Chu Fei, could break through this kind of shackles and shatter all the cages. The elders of the Divine Command Peak paid the most attention to this point, but the Peak Lord, Sui Yun Fu, paid attention to Chu Yang. He always felt that there was something fishy about Chu Yang. Although everything seemed lively on the surface, most people didn't think highly of Chu Yang and the East Arrival Pavilion. The conflict between factions was really too strong. It wasn't that there weren't any prodigies among the new disciples in the past, but in the end, they still couldn't withstand the pressure of the older disciples. As for the arranged battle between Chu Yang and Wang Zimo, although Chu Yang had the title of being the younger brother of the unparalleled saint child, most people didn't think that Chu Yang could be mentioned in the same breath as Wang Zimo. In their eyes, Chu Yang was only a new disciple after all. However, Wang Zimo was quite famous among the core disciples, not to mention the inner disciples. Many people even knew of him among the higher-ups of the Five Elements sect. Wang Zimo was ranked in the top 100 on the Hidden Dragon ranking, and was considered an existence that could become a true disciple. This was enough to prove Wang Zimo's strength, so many people thought highly of him. As for who Chu Yang was, many people didn't even know at first. He was ranked at least below the top 1000 on the Hidden Dragon ranking, and he was only a new disciple of this year. Even though it was said that this year's new disciples were extraordinary, and Chu Yang was one of the best, but after all, he had only been cultivating for a short period of time. After 1 or 2 years, no one dared to say who would win or lose. But at least for now, no one was optimistic about Chu Yang. Once Chu Yang failed, then the newly established East Arrival Pavilion would completely fall apart. Disbanding would be a foregone conclusion. Time passed and it was time for their battle. On this day, the Ring of Life and Death on the Divine Command Peak was crowded with people. Many disciples from various peaks came to watch. As for why it was the Life and Death arena, it was simply because Chu Yang had caused a huge commotion, and it was widely known that Wang Zimo wanted to suppress Chu Yang's momentum. The purpose of this was to suppress Chu Yang's mind and give him the greatest pressure. In the life and death arena, life and death were decided by fate. This was also the way the Five Elements sect resolved irreconcilable conflicts between disciples. Generally speaking, unless there was a deep hatred, no one would enter the life and death arena. The Five Elements sect didn't avoid this. If it really came to a point where one party had to die, the hidden death battle between the two parties would be more harmful, and would be detrimental to the development of the Five Elements sect. Every year, there would be some disciples here to resolve their life and death grudges. But this time, it was unsurprisingly the most lively one. A new disciple challenging an established senior disciple. It had been a long time since such a situation had occurred. When was the last time? How many years had it been? Not many people really remembered. With such a provocation, Chu Yang naturally agreed. How could he be afraid of Wang Zimo? He had never treated Wang Zimo as an opponent. Come, come, come. The battle is about to start. Bet on Chu Yang's victory. The odds are 1 to 10, and the odds are 1 to 2 for Wang Zimo's victory. The disciple who opened the gambling house shouted out. Many disciples started to place their bets, and most of them bet on Wang Zimo's victory. Only a small portion of them wanted to make a fortune and bet on whether there would be a miracle. Only then would they bet on Chu Yang's victory. Damn it. Isn't this bullying? Are you looking down on my little brother? There was a very pleasant voice as three pretty ladies walked out side by side from the crowd. They were extremely dazzling as they stood in the crowd. They were actually Chu Na, Yi Chimei, and Wang Xiaoman. Today's arranged battle had attracted a lot of attention. Many disciples had rushed over early in the morning. Chu Na and the disciples of the coiling dragon martial Insti Tushan would definitely be here. Most of the new disciples would also be here. Even the moon-gazing martial Insti Tushan's Gongshong and the sunset martial Insti Tushan's Chengfeng had already appeared. They quickly gathered in one place. Li Chengfeng and Gongshong had already started chatting with Crooked Blade Immortal, mostly talking about their own encounters and experiences. Brother Chu, you and Brother Chu are the ones with ambition and courage. For at least 50 years, no new disciples dared to establish a faction in the Five Elements sect. You and Brother Chu have broken this tradition. That's right. The two of us definitely don't have the ability to establish a faction. The East Arrival Pavilion was able to hold on for so many days. It is already considered pretty good. Even if it disbanded in the end, there would still be endless glory. After hearing such words, Chu Renxian couldn't help but smile bitterly. I don't have any credit for this. It was all Brother Chu's doing. Ever since Brother Chu unleashed the 100 flood dragons, no other faction dared to provoke the East Arrival Pavilion. Only this fierce beast gang. Chengfeng and Gongshong naturally knew about the 100 flood dragons. The two of them couldn't help but sigh. Brother Chu is indeed incredible. He is definitely the leader and role model of this new batch of disciples. Chapter 398. Confident. The Crooked Blade Immortal smiled bitterly again. I don't have the slightest bit of confidence. However, I can see that Brother Chu doesn't seem to care about this matter at all. Especially in the past few days, I feel that his level isn't here at all. Instead, he's worried about his big brother, the unparalleled Saint Sun. The peerless Saint Child Chu Fei, Gongshong, and Li Chengfeng only just found out about this. Their hearts shook violently. From the Crooked Blade Immortal's words, it seemed that Chu Yang, who was at the Saint Child level, had the ability to deal with him. If that's the case, then this deathmatch is just a joke to Brother Chu. The Crooked Blade Immortal shrugged and said helplessly, who knows? In any case, Brother Chu is just like that. However, the only person who can make our Divine Command Peak's Peak Lord, who is so strict and rigid, fly into a rage and beat him up seems to be Brother Chu. This was a compliment and also an evaluation of Chu Yang. Gongshong and Chengfeng were speechless. As for Chu Yang being beaten up, they felt that Chu Yang wasn't wronged at all. Chu Yang was too arrogant, and he was too bold. Not only did he scold the true disciples and Dehu and Burning Heaven Saint Sun, but he also scolded the entire Five Elements sect from top to bottom. The persecutory theory that he elaborated was even more alarmist. Especially that sentence, "One shouldn't be like the Five Elements sect." Everyone in the sect knew about it. It could be said that Chu Yang was simply too daring. It was normal for the Divine Command Peak Lord to beat him up. While the three were discussing, a loud and clear voice came from the gambling house. The three couldn't help but look over. These senior disciples are really snobs. How could they know how powerful junior brother Chu is? The three could clearly see that it was the Coiling Dragon Martial Institutions group. The one who spoke was Li Hao. Li Hao entered through the crowd and said in front of the gambling table, "I bet 300 merit points on Chu Yang's victory. I bet 400 merit points." Zhong Tian's voice was concise and powerful. "I bet on Chu Yang's victory. I also bet 100 merit points. I bet 200. I bet 700 merit points." A woman's voice suddenly sounded. Who else could it be but Chu Na? Wang Xiaoman also chimed in. "I also have 500 merit point. Junior sisters, it wasn't easy for you to get your merit points. Furthermore, this is all of your merit points. You." Yi Chimei couldn't help but panic. Chu Renxian and the other two suddenly realized that Chu Yang's senior and junior brothers from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were extremely confident in Chu Yang and were betting crazily. A new disciple, including the rewards from the entrance exam, would at most receive 300 merit points. Chu Na's was already considered a lot. But they actually went all in. This sudden turn of events caused all the surrounding disciples to be dumbfounded as they stared at these new disciples. They didn't know what had happened to these new disciples. Not only did they bet on Chu Yang, who had no chance of winning, they even bet their entire fortune on him. Don't they know that they will lose everything if they do this? Although the odds of 110 seemed very attractive, as long as there was a trace of chance of winning, would the banker dare to set the odds as high as 110? These fools. The banker secretly sneered and quickly took over all the bets and registered them one by one. He was in an extremely happy mood. "Is there anyone else who wants to bet? The duel is about to begin." The disciple in charge of the gambling house yelled out again. "Ya." A five-colored silhouette appeared in front of everyone's eyes with a whoosh. It appeared at the gambling house. A cute little beast was holding a merit card in its paw. Its other paw was pointing at Chu Yang's name, and it was squeaking non-stop. Many people immediately recognized the little beast beside Chu Yang. Chu Yang wants to bet on himself to win. Ya. Xiao Guori nodded. He wants to bet everything in this merit token. Ya. Xiao Guori nodded again. Okay. The disciple in charge of the gambling house yelled happily. Chu Yang wants to bet on himself to win. Bet. Suddenly, the disciple saw the number in Chu Yang's merit token and his eyes couldn't help but pop out. He was so scared that he almost couldn't hold the merit token. What's wrong? Another disciple at the gambling house took the merit token and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he saw it. He cried out in surprise, 15,000 merit points. 15,000 merit points caused the surroundings to become silent. To the many disciples of the Five Element sect, 15,000 merit points was not a small number, let alone a new disciple. 15,000 merit points was simply an astronomical number for a new disciple. Chu Yang's 700 merit points made many old disciples' eyelids twitch. However, this Chu Yang was even more heaven-defying, a total of 15,000 merit point. As a new disciple, where did he get so many merit points from? What did this mean? Chu Yang was extremely extraordinary and extremely strong. Anxious roars immediately rang out. I bet 10,000 merit points on Chu Yang. I bet 30,000 merit points on Chu Yang. I bet 50,000 merit points on Chu Yang. The sudden change in the situation caused the smiles of the disciples at the gambling house to immediately freeze on their faces. Their judgment was wrong. Something bad was going to happen. Among these disciples, one of them immediately ordered in a low voice, "Quick, quick, quick. Go and inform senior brother Jin. Something has happened." 15,000 merit points. Chu Yang bet on himself to win. Many people saw a lot of information from this scene. Chu Yang intended to make a name for himself and establish his might. This Wang Zimo might be the ghost under his blade. Chapter 399. YA. The disciple who opened the gambling house accepted Little Guari's bet. Little Guari cupped its paws to express its gratitude. Its polite appearance was extremely cute and even a little silly. However, its eyes were like crystals. There was not a trace of impurity in them, and they were filled with spirituality. It was already adorable to begin with. Now, not only was it even more adorable, it was also very amusing. Wang Xiaoman looked at Little Guari with her beautiful eyes shining. She pulled Chu Na and said, "Senior sister, this little cutie, can you get it from junior brother Chu?" When Yi Chimei heard Wang Xiaoman's words, she couldn't help but think to herself, she's too heartless. Chu Yang is still concerned about this when he's in a life and death situation. But what she never expected was that Chu Na was also like this. "Junior sister, you're right. I must get this little beast. If little Mianyan dares to disobey, Chu Na raised her fist and said, "I'll teach him how to behave. Even his elder sister is like this." Yi Chimei facepalmed. "How much trust do you have in your junior brother Chu to be like this?" Whoosh. Just as Wang Xiaoman and Chu Na were plotting against Little Guari finished placing its bet. With a whoosh, it transformed into a 5-colored ray of light and disappeared. At this moment, the surroundings of the arena of life and death were already crowded with disciples. It could be said to be a sea of people. Not only were there many inner disciples, but there were also many core disciples. There were also people from the 10 major peaks. The Blacklist sect, Puppet Pavilion, and Sky Sword faction were led by Chai Guiyuan, Qing Letong, and Zhuahaoxi. The 3 major factions of the Divine Command Peak stood side by side. The Ferocious Beast faction was opposite them, but they didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Time slowly approached the time of the life and death duel. Many disciples began to feel restless, especially the members of the Fierce Beast gang. They were even more so. Get rid of that bastard who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Let those newcomers know our prowess. We have to let them know the rules. Otherwise, they'll think this is a place for them to act impudently. The Ferocious Beast faction's disciples clamored and provoked, causing the disciples of the East Arrival Pavilion to glare at them furiously. Swoosh. At this time, 2 whistling sounds came. Among these 2 people, one of them was extremely eye-catching. He was fat, extremely fat, fat to the extreme, fat like a big meatball. This meatball was even fatter than the fatty that Chu Yang had seen during the entrance exam in the Western region. The meatball flew over like a giant boulder, clad in glittering golden clothing. At first glance, it didn't seem to have legs or eyes, all of which were stolen away by the dazzling mass of fat. There was another person behind him. This person actually had quite a personality. At first glance, one could tell that he was not a refined person. Instead, he was the leader of the street gangsters. He was very dignified and had a strong underworld aura. There was even a hideous scar on his face. But even such a person was completely overshadowed by the meatball. Almost no one noticed him, not even the disciples of the Fierce Beast gang. Why focus on the Fierce Beast gang? Because this person was the previous leader of the Fierce Beast gang, Xie Xuewen. Dong. As soon as the meatball hit the ground trembled. At the same time, someone cried out. This is Jin Duo from the Inner Peaks Wood Element Peak. He loves to gamble. His gambling behavior is excellent. Everyone, please place your bets. Yes, Jin Duo has never broken his promises. Moreover, I heard that his martial spirit is very interesting. It is said that it is a 6-colored die. The meatball's physical characteristics were too obvious. Everyone recognized him immediately. Senior brother Jin, you're here. The disciples at the gambling house saw their savior. They quickly came over and whispered in his ear, Senior brother Jin, the situation seems a little strange. After this Chu Yang bet 15,000 merit points, many disciples are frantically placing their bets on him. The meatball glanced at the disciple. His gaze was very obvious. Are you stupid? The more people placed their bets on Chu Yang, the more they would win. But senior brother Jin, the disciple, insisted, I keep feeling that something is wrong. This Chu Yang seems to be very strange. Anyway, he is definitely not a fool. Not only did he come to die, he also came to give money. Chapter 400. Jin Duoduo jumped up like a big ball bouncing up after landing on the ground. Xie Xuewen, who followed him, couldn't help but despise him. Wasn't it just Chu Yang? How could he be Xiao Mo's opponent? But this 15,000 merit points made Jin Duoduo suddenly think of a person who cheated his boss. He remembered that the person who cheated his boss seemed to be called Chu Yang and wanted to treat his boss to a drink. Damn, I almost fell for it. Jin Duoduo shouted in his heart. Sure enough, birds of a feather flock together. This Chu Yang and my boss are really the same. They like to pretend to be pigs to eat tigers, and their skills are first class. In any case, Jin Duoduo was convinced that his boss could become a saint. He had a powerful father, but he wouldn't reveal it even if he was beaten to death. In front of others, he had to pretend not to know his father. Immediately change the odds for me. The original odds for Xiao Mo will be increased to 120. Jin Duoduo anxiously roared. His voice shook everyone's ears. Brother Jin, this is not good. The disciple in charge of the gambling house couldn't help but be stunned. This was too much. Wouldn't the person who bet on Xiao Mo go crazy? And if he lost, it would be really miserable. I told you to change it, so you change it. Why are you talking nonsense? Jin Duoduo angrily glared at the disciple. Chu Yang, that sinister guy, cheated these idiots. He dared to guarantee that if Chu Yang, this guy who pretended to be pigs to eat tigers, had 1,000,000 merit points, he would definitely bet everything. Fortunately, I found out in time. Otherwise, I would lose like a dog. Even my dog hair would be eaten. Jin Duoduo's body was covered in cold sweat. This Chu Yang was clearly boss cow number 2. He was very familiar with their methods. You won't even know what's going on. I say, fatty, you're looking at me sideways. Xie Xuewen was very unhappy. This damn fatty had completely regarded his little brother, Wang Zimo, as a dog, or even worse than a dog. Xiao Sanzi, you know shit. Jin Duoduo said disdainfully, I'll give you a piece of advice. Quickly hide your face later, or else you'll embarrass yourself again. Before Xie Xuewen could retaliate, the Fierce Beast Gang's disciples were already furious when they heard that the odds had been changed. Damn it. What's the meaning of this? You're looking down on our ferocious beast gang. I bet 10,000 merit points on our gang. I'll bet 10,000 too. I bet 30,000. I bet 300,000. 300,000 points was simply an astronomical number. Even for true disciples, 300,000 points was an incomparably huge number. Everyone looked over at once. It was a person as thin as a bamboo pole. Many of them recognized him, Zhu Wenbing, Jin Duoduo's sworn enemy. At least a lot of these 300,000 merit points had been given to him by Jin Duoduo. Because of this, Jin Duoduo was hung up and beaten by his boss. Otherwise, if Boss Cow didn't make a move, even if Jin Duoduo sold all his fat, he still wouldn't be able to afford it. Jin Duoduo's anger rose. Zhu Wenbing, if you can beat me this time, I'll change my surname to yours. Jin Duoduo, do you dare to accept? Zhu Wenbing directly provoked. Accept. It was a simple word, but it seemed to have been squeezed out from the gaps between Jin Duoduo's teeth. So what if you win? You'll probably attract a lot of trouble. Jin Duoduo naturally understood Zhu Wenbing's words. If he stood on Chu Yang's side, it would be equivalent to offending the Burning Sky Saint Sun and all of the Peerless Saint Sun's enemies. Therefore, Zhu Wenbing's meaning was that Jin Duoduo had already lost. Jin Duoduo couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Let's wait and see if you're the fool or I'm the fool. How could the Peerless Saint Sun be a simple person? Since he dared to let his younger brother enter the Five Elements sect, he must have been fully prepared. Perhaps, his eyes narrowed, and then his eyelids twitched. This Chu Yang is definitely here to trick people. He's pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. This Chu Yang and his brother aren't inferior to my boss. Jin Duo felt that he had discovered a huge secret. Chu Yang must have tricked some people from the Five Elements sect from the bottom to the top. What enemies of the peerless Saint Sun? They were all going to cry their eyes out. This Chu Yang is too sinister. He's simply too sinister. No, after this, I have to pay a visit to the sect so that I won't be tricked as well. Jin Duo had already made a decision in his heart. At the same time, he shouted loudly in his heart, "My boss is indeed a heaven-blessed martial artist. Zhu Wenbing, you talk too much nonsense. It's just a bet, and I can offend people. You're really interesting." Jin Duo dismissed it with a smile. He didn't leak any information and covered it up tightly. "Do you really think so?" Jin Duo couldn't be bothered with Zhu Wenbing. He waved his chubby hand and said, "Go away, don't talk nonsense here." Zhu Wenbing couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Chapter 401. His face was as fair as jade, and his eyebrows were thick and black. His eyes were also extremely black, and his pupils were a strange green. His gaze was extremely bright, and at first glance, it was as if a will-o'-the-wisp was dancing in the dark night. He was dressed in martial attire, and his figure was sturdy. His expression was arrogant, cold, and gloomy, and his aura was extremely vigorous. The moment he appeared, many disciples felt as if a mountain was moving towards them. That figure seemed to be unshakable. This was Wang Zhimo of the Fierce Beast Gang. The moment he appeared, the surroundings fell silent. His aura was very oppressive, and those below the ascending soul tier instantly felt a great pressure. Wang Zhimo had a very strong aura. "Where's Chu Yang? He still hasn't appeared, is he afraid? He's simply wasting my time." Wang Zhimo was a little arrogant and bossy. "He's definitely afraid. He's just a mere new disciple, how would he dare to be impudent in front of the gang leader? Isn't that so? He's considered smart." Ha ha ha, the members of the Fierce Beast Gang laughed loudly, and their voices were very loud. To the people of the East Arrival Pavilion, Yu Chuna, Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and the others, it was very ear-piercing. "What kind of joke is this? It's so funny. Tell me, let me hear it and laugh." After a short period of time, after Wang Zhimo's voice, a clear voice lightly came from not far away. Everyone couldn't help but look over. Shockingly, they saw a white-clothed figure with a smile on his face. There was a five-colored little beast on his shoulder, and its transparent eyes were staring at Wang Zhimo. It kept squeaking at this white-clothed figure, as if it was excitedly identifying a criminal. It's him who barged into our house and acted so impudently that day, after Chu Yang was violently beaten up by the Divine Command Peak Summit Master. Little Guari felt that it and Chu Yang had already been punished for their mistake. It no longer felt guilty or conflicted, and once again became spirited, jumping up and down every day. Junior Brother Chu, Senior Brother Chu. The members of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the East Arrival Pavilion couldn't help but feel excited. Chu Renxian, Gong Shong, and Chengfeng's gazes all landed on Chu Yang. The three of them couldn't help but be shocked as they realized that Chu Yang's aura seemed to have become much more vigorous, especially for Gong Shong and Chengfeng. Yi Chimei was also stunned. Chu Yang's current aura made her feel as if she was looking up at a towering mountain range. Moreover, she couldn't even see the peak of this mountain range. "It's Chu Yang. Chu Yang is here." Many disciples of the Divine Command Peak recognized Chu Yang and could not help but speak out. Chu Yang walked out from the crowd. He glanced at Wang Zhimo with an indifferent expression, then ignored him. His gaze swept across the crowd as he said, "How lively, so many people have come. I am really so charming, thank you for everyone's love." It was a little improper, a little arrogant, and a kind of indifference. It was as if he didn't put Wang Zhimo in his eyes at all, as if he didn't take Wang Zhimo seriously at all. This caused many people to be stunned. They had all heard that this Chu Yang was arrogant, but they never imagined that Chu Yang would actually be so arrogant. He was only at the 5th level of the Chi Soul Realm, so how could he be so impudent in front of someone at the 1st level of the Ascending Soul Realm? "Are you sure you're not courting death? It's over, it's over. This Wang Zhimo is finished. Junior Brother Chu will probably make him doubt his life." In the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, The disciples who had been interacting with Chu Yang all this while, when they saw Chu Yang's appearance, immediately declared Wang Zimo's death sentence in their hearts. Chapter 402. This Wang Zimo is going to be unlucky. Jin Duo was already mourning for Wang Zimo. He couldn't help but sneer as he glanced at Zhu Wenbing. At this moment, Zhu Wenbing's expression was a little ugly. It was obvious that he had also noticed Chu Yang's extraordinariness. So you are Chu Yang. You didn't disappoint me. Wang Zimo's voice was very cold. His pupils suddenly shrank. Chu Yang's body was faintly emitting an aura that made him feel uneasy. It was quite intense. As Chu Yang stepped onto the stage, the atmosphere of the scene was instantly ignited. Sect leader, let's teach this arrogant brat a lesson. Go for it, gang leader. The ferocious beast gang's disciples clamored. They could feel Chu Yang's strength, but they definitely didn't think that Chu Yang was a match for Wang Zimo. The gap between the Chi Soul stage and the Ascending Soul stage was like a natural chasm. Did you hear that? They asked me to teach you a lesson. Wang Zimo was shocked. Then, he became indifferent and calm. The arrogant expression on his face appeared again. He ordered arrogantly, Chu Yang, if you kneel down now and kowtow to me and admit your mistakes, you still have a chance. Also, you better remember that I am rarely so merciful. I can feel your kindness. Please continue your kindness and let this world feel warmth and love. Ya. Chu Yang's improper behavior made Xiao Guori feel very embarrassed. Its two front paws were already covering its eyes. Do you know where this place is? Life and death ring, are you sure you want to die? Wang Zimo's voice was as cold as ice. Chu Yang smiled lazily and even yawned. Can you not say such frightening words? There are many children here. What if you scare them? Ha. Such a ridiculing tone made the coiling dragon martial institution's disciples, who knew Chu Yang's background, and the others burst into laughter. You are courting death. Wang Zimo was thoroughly enraged by Chu Yang's contempt. He took a step forward, and with a loud bang, his body was like an arrow released from a bow. He instantly pounced on Chu Yang. So fast. Chu Yang exclaimed in amazement, but he was still lazing in the same spot. He had no intention of moving at all. Ya. It felt that Chu Yang was just being frivolous, but Wang Zimo was going to kill him. This was going too far, and it was furious. Boom. On the arena, Wang Zimo's figure flashed like lightning, like a meteor. However, when Wang Zimo arrived in front of Chu Yang lazily raised his hand and opened his palm to welcome Wang Zimo. The two vigorous quintessence suddenly erupted and clashed violently, creating a chaotic wind. The life and death arena only trembled slightly, but it was still extremely sturdy. Peng peng peng. Amidst the low and deep sound, a figure could not help but continuously retreat. However, even so, he was unable to dispel the frightening power on his body. In the end, he was sent flying and fiercely fell on the stage, raising a cloud of dust. The scene was dead silent. The one who was sent flying was actually Wang Zimo, who was in the first layer of the ascending soul tier. The genius Wang Zimo, while Chu Yang, who was in the first layer of the Chi soul tier, stood still in the same spot. Wang Zimo just now was like a person who couldn't get through a wall. He exploded with all his strength and crashed into the wall, and then was sent flying back. It was a very bizarre scene, bizarre to the extreme. If Wang Zimo was Chu Yang, this wouldn't be a big deal. However, he wasn't. He took the initiative to crash into the wall. The one who was sent flying was Wang Zimo, not Chu Yang. It was as if the two of them were completely reversed. It could be said that what happened just now had completely overturned everyone's understanding. A higher cultivation level was actually sent flying by a lower cultivation level. Chapter 403. Chu Yang's indifferent voice startled everyone. Junior brother Chu is indeed a monster. He didn't disappoint at all. Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and the others couldn't help but shake their heads and smile bitterly. They firmly believed that Chu Yang would definitely defeat Wang Zimo, but they never imagined that Chu Yang would be so ridiculous. Senior sister, junior brother Chu isn't being serious. You have to take care of him. He's too hateful. Junior sister, You're right. This damned little sheep, he doesn't know how to restrain himself. Chu Na gnashed her teeth, and Wang Xiaojin's words made Yi Chimei somewhat absent-minded. It was as if her soul had left her body. At this moment, she finally understood that there was no need for them to worry about Chu Yang being so ridiculous. She was truly shocked. Just what level has this Chu Yang reached? Chu Renxian wasn't too bad, but Gong Shong and Cheng Feng generally had the same feelings as Yi Chimei. Jin Duo wasn't surprised by this result at all. He was already commenting, this junior brother Chu is far inferior to boss. He should have won by just a little bit. He should have let the opponent have hope, but he can't win until he finally collapses. Next time, he can still pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. Junior brother Chu is too weak. Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger isn't like this. He still needs to learn from boss. When Jin Duo commented on Chu Yang, he couldn't help but sneer at Zhu Wenbing. His expression was full of disdain, causing Zhu Wenbing to fiercely clench his fist. Of course, among everyone present, the one who was most shocked wasn't the others, but Wang Zimo. Wang Zimo had never imagined that his soul pressure would have no effect on Chu Yang's Jin Yuan. Chu Yang's Jin Yuan didn't become chaotic or uncontrollable. He had taken precautions against Chu Yang's enormous strength as a body cultivator, but Chu Yang's strength was even more terrifying than he had imagined. In addition, Chu Yang's Jin Yuan wasn't affected in the slightest, and its quality was also frighteningly high. This was why he was in such a sorry state just now. Terrifying strength. His shocking true essence and soul pressure couldn't even shake him. Chu Yang, don't you think it's too early to say that? Wang Zimo stood up. Shame and fury burned his entire body. You're not qualified to say that you're an iron plate in front of me. Kneel down, Wang. From between Wang Zimo's eyebrows, circles of ripples undulated. He had finally used his soul pressure on Chu Yang, attacking Chu Yang's martial spirit. The scene was shocking. Soul pressure gushed out from the void, transforming into the form of a long spear that directly pierced towards Chu Yang. Such a scene made Jin Duoduo's fat body tremble. The usage of soul suppression was Prince Mo Yu's secret technique. It was even more terrifying and frightening when used. Fatty, do you still think that Chu Yang can win? The previous helper of the Fierce Beast Gang, Xie Shuowen, spoke at this time. Although Chu Yang shocked him, he was also very familiar with Wang Zimo's shocking strength. However, before he finished speaking, his whole body suddenly stiffened, as if he was about to be petrified. Come and go. Ascending soul tier against Chi soul tier, is it only soul suppression? Can you guys come up with something new? Wang. Chu Yang swung his sleeve, and with a bang, it hit the void. It was as if he had hit something solid. Instantly, there was a burst of explosive sound, and soon after, there was an explosion, but there was an even more intense ripple undulated out in the void. How was this possible? How could he possibly resist my soul suppression? Wang Zimo's expression changed drastically. He used a secret technique unique to his martial spirit to display such soul suppression. Even those in the third layer of the ascending soul tier would have to be wary, so how could Chu Yang resist? Unbelievable. Boom. The crowd also completely exploded, crying out in surprise. My God, Chi soul tier can actually resist the ascending soul tier's soul suppression. Is this real? Is this a ghost? The advantage of the ascending soul tier over the Chi soul tier lies in the martial spirit. When the martial spirit improves, a high-level martial spirit crushes a low-level martial spirit. Once the soul suppression is used, it's as easy as an emperor killing a beggar, but how could this be? Am I crazy? What did I see? The Chi soul tier can actually resist the soul suppression of an ascending soul tier so easily. The ascending soul tier, when the martial spirit improved, had an absolute and unparalleled advantage over the Chi soul tier. Moreover, when the martial spirit improved, the true origin would be further refined, and the quality of the true origin would be higher than that of the Chi soul tier. However, in the first exchange, Chu Yang's true origin seemed to have crushed Wang Zimo's true origin. In the second exchange, the soul suppression was actually useless against Chu Yang. Chapter 404. What the? This junior brother Chu is a little too scary. Jinduadua's fats undulated like waves. He was frightened and muttered in his heart, "Junior brother Chu, I take back what I said just now. It's not that junior brother Chu doesn't know how to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger, but you have too many cards up your sleeves. You can do whatever you want." Even the big meatball Jinduo was like this, not to mention the others. "Everyone, can you not have such a shocked expression? This makes me very dissatisfied. For a person like me, nothing is impossible. Too immodest. Yay. Little Guari couldn't bear to watch anymore. Chu Yang's style was too conflicting with its philosophy. And everyone, this is definitely not against the law. Chu Yang smiled and said, "I've already asked the disciples of the Hall of Guardians to verify it. They said that this is in accordance with the rules of the sect. So, if you make such an expression again, be careful that I'll sue you for discrimination." They couldn't stand it. Everyone couldn't stand it, and many of them started to curse. You're too much. You're sincere, you bastard #yuan%. Jinduo was stunned again and couldn't help but curse in his heart. #yuan%, this junior brother Chu is 100 times more despicable than boss. No, I have to hug this future thigh in advance. Prince Mo, are you desperate? Chu Yang ridiculed Prince Mo, which made the entire crowd silent again. Everyone was speechless again. But there was nothing wrong with his words. Chu Yang was such a lunatic, such a monster. He couldn't be measured with common sense and would really make people desperate. You haven't won yet, don't be complacent too early. Wang Zimo took out a jet-black spear. The spear tip flickered with a threatening cold chi. With a shake, a buzzing sound rang out, accompanied by a circular ripple. Wang Zimo seemed to be connected with the heavens and earth. He was the heavens and the heavens and earth were him. The concept of the spear. Everyone was shocked. This Prince Mo was indeed not simple. He had a unique secret technique for the execution of soul suppression. He had mastered the most difficult concept to master. No wonder he could enter the top 100 of the Hidden Dragon list. Thousands of troops, I will be the vanguard, toxic dragon drill, rumble. Wang Zimo pierced out with his spear. The void seemed to have transformed into the earth, and the illusory images of thousands of soldiers and horses appeared to be charging forward. That kind of aura was akin to the collapse of mountains and the rupture of the earth, shocking the souls of those who saw it. Especially the spear in Wang Zimo's hand. Before the tip of the spear drilled, a sharp wave condensed and formed, and pierced straight towards Chu Yang. The surrounding air was thoroughly rolled up, and formed an air vortex. Chu Yang was an expert in this aspect. Artistic conception was the momentum of power. Array formations were all about borrowing the power of the heavens and earth. That was to borrow the power of the heavens and earth. To use this to deal with him, Wang Zimo had found the wrong person. Chu Yang's hand swung out like an elephant's trunk. Circles of ripples spread out from his palm. In an instant, Wang Zimo's artistic conception completely collapsed, and the illusory images of thousands of soldiers and horses exploded. At this moment, Chu Yang seemed to have merged with the heavens and earth. His palm wrapped in the power of the heavens and earth, and grabbed forward. The cone-like sharp wave seemed to be just a gust of wind, and Chu Yang's hand pierced through it. The cold tip of the spear was like a wooden sword in the hands of a naughty child. It was directly grabbed by Chu Yang's hand and broken. The long spear suddenly bent under the enormous twisting force. After which, it exploded into two with a bang. A ripple of force that was visible to the naked eye surged out. Immediately, it heavily collided with the bodies of the two human figures. Chu Yang seemed to be like a mountain, not moving at all. Wang Zimo's entire body let out a cry, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was violently blown away. Shua. Chu Yang's figure moved, and his speed was even faster than Wang Zimo's. He stepped on Wang Zimo, and heavily landed on the life and death arena, causing the entire arena to shake. Are you in despair? Chu Yang's cold voice made everyone present tremble. He would directly beat you into despair. Let people off when possible. It's not good to go too far. Chapter 405. Let people off when possible. It's not good to bully others too far. Who dared to provoke the monster Chu Yang at this time? When everyone looked towards the source of the voice, they saw the big meatball Jin Duo. Many people thought it was him, but behind his fat body, there was a young man around 26 or 27 years old with a hideous scar on his face. He walked around Jin Duo and walked out. In this short period of time, everyone clearly felt that the big meatball was blocking and deliberately covering the young man with the scar. However, the young man with the scar still stubbornly walked out. The person who walked out was naturally the former leader of the Fierce Beast Gang, Xie Shuowen. During this time, the big meatball and Xie Shuowen had an intense conversation. The moment Xie Shuowen spoke, Jin Duo was shocked and immediately warned him, "Little third, do you want to die? Tempage, you're only at the 5th layer of the Chi Soul realm, and you think you can kill me? You think too highly of this Chu Yang, fatty. You're only at the 5th layer of the Chi Soul realm, what arrogance." His good intentions were treated as ill intent, so Jin Duo's voice turned cold and mocked. "What was your cultivation level when you first entered the Five Elements sect? When you were only at the 5th layer of the Chi Soul realm, you were able to withstand the soul pressure and crush a first layer of the ascending soul realm into despair. Is there something wrong with your brain?" Jin Duo pointed out Chu Yang's shocking aspects one by one, causing Xie Shuowen's eyelids to twitch. However, he was a person who cared about his reputation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have shouted out in anger when Wang Zimo was humiliated by Chu Yang. He immediately argued, "I admit that this Chu Yang is indeed shocking, but this should be his limit. So, no matter how shocking he is, he's definitely not my match. His limit is just that." "What makes you so sure? Are you taking it for granted just because you patted your head?" Jin Duo was furious. Xie Shuowen was really an idiot who couldn't be saved. You're only at the 5th layer of the ascending soul realm, and you think you're powerful? But didn't you put on your ears just now? Earlier, he had specifically mentioned the Hall of Guardians' disciples, saying that they would verify and that he would definitely not break the law. Do you know what that means? So what? He's only at the 5th layer of the Chi Soul realm after all. I have to teach him a lesson, or else where would I put my face? Xie Shuowen's tone was still arrogant. Jin Duo's voice was even colder. Your face. All right, for your sake, this is my last reminder to you. Chu Yang even dared to cheat senior brother Cao. The 15,000 merit points he obtained were all from senior brother Cao. What? Xie Shuowen's pupils trembled violently, and his body shook violently. But at this time, he had already bypassed Jin Duo and walked out. Everyone's eyes fell on him. Gang leader, senior brother Xie, it's senior brother Xie, Xie Shuowen. When the Fierce Beast Gang saw Xie Shuowen, they couldn't help but be overjoyed and they cheered loudly. Many of them immediately recognized Xie Shuowen. The Black Wolf Gang's Chai Guiyuan, the Puppet Pavilion's Qing Letong, and the Heaven's Sword Gang's Zhua Haoxi couldn't help but look at Xie Shuowen at this moment. Xie Shuowen wasn't from the same generation as them, but the three of them knew this ruthless person. They had also fought fiercely with their 3 factions before. At that time, the 3 of them weren't the leaders of their own factions. Oh. Chu Yang looked at Xie Shuowen with a smile. In an instant, when Chu Yang's gaze fell on Xie Shuowen's eyelids suddenly twitched violently. An extreme sense of danger welled up in his heart. He felt as if he was a prey that had been targeted by a hunter. Chapter 406. Dare I ask this great hero who stands up for injustice? What is your name? You want to stop this dispute in the martial arts world, but you must be strong enough. Chu Yang's mocking tone caused Xie Shuowen's expression to change greatly. He was ashamed and furious, and his eyes shone with a fierce light. As for Chu Yang's question, everyone understood. You say I'm going too far. What angle are you standing on? Neutral? Or from some corner of the world? The scene suddenly fell into a dead silence. On one side was the monster Chu Yang who had just displayed his prowess, and on the other side was the former helper of the Fierce Beast Gang, Xie Shuowen, an inner peak true disciple at the 5th layer of the ascending soul realm. What kind of conflict would erupt between the two? Chu Yang's cold voice rang out again. Great hero, I heard that you are the former gang leader of the Fierce Beast Gang. Your name is Xie Shuowen, and I am speaking the truth. This was a question he already knew the answer to. Just now, everyone had already exposed Xie Xuewen's identity. Bang! Xie Xuewen's anger rushed to his head, and he took a heavy step forward. I am the former gang leader of the Fierce Beast Gang, Xie Xuewen. What? Did I say you're going too far? Clap clap. Chu Yang clapped his hands alone, and his monotonous voice was incomparably monotonous. He laughed again. Yes, you're absolutely right. But I have a few questions to ask. Who started it? Who injured the disciples of the East Arrival Pavilion? Who said that they would beat everyone in the East Arrival Pavilion into trash? Who forced the East Arrival Pavilion to disband again? The sneer on Chu Yang's lips became even more obvious. The other factions didn't come looking for trouble. Only your Fierce Beast Gang came looking for trouble. Tell me, what is the meaning of this? At this moment, Xie Xuewen was instantly mute. His pupils shrank. The other factions didn't go looking for trouble with the East Arrival Pavilion, so why did the Fierce Beast Gang go? For many years, the Five Elements sect hasn't had a new disciple who could establish his own faction. You created your own faction, so naturally you had to go through the test. This is very normal. Moreover, as a new disciple, you should show respect to the older disciples. Of course, I respect you very much, Senior Brother Xie. Chu Yang smiled and said, it's just that if Senior Martial Brother Xie doesn't become the old disciple's dog, does that mean he doesn't respect the old disciple? Forget it, I'll admit defeat. After a pause, Chu Yang pointed at Prince Mo at his feet and sneered as he questioned repeatedly. I killed his father. I took his wife. He beat up his brother. Xie Xuewen couldn't answer any of them. I didn't kill his father, snatch his wife, and beat up his brothers. What enmity do I have with him? He actually forced me onto the life and death arena to fight him to the death. Chu Yang's voice suddenly became loud and clear. Then, he said coldly, Senior Brother Xie, why don't you tell me who's going too far? In other words, you're saying that killing people shouldn't be too excessive, right? I understand now. Bang! Chu Yang exerted force with his foot, and directly trampled Wang Zimo to death. Why? Everyone's reaction was a beat slower. Little Guari was already angrily shouting, accusing Chu Yang of not killing people. Chu Yang tapped its forehead. Little Guari, you're a Hello Kitty. If I don't kill people, they all think I'm a Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty. Everyone didn't understand, but they could see Little Guari's appearance clearly and vaguely understood the meaning behind it. He was killing people to establish his might. If people offend me, I will retaliate. If people kill me, I will kill them. Jin Duoduo's pupils shrank. He saw something completely different from Cao Ju in Chu Yang. Chu Yang was too decisive. Xie Xuewen couldn't keep his face anymore. Chu Yang actually killed people in front of him, not giving him any face at all. You. Chu Yang said coldly, you what? If you're not convinced, then come up and fight with me. Isn't it more satisfying to fight to the death? What? Chu Yang actually wanted to provoke Xie Xuewen and challenge the fifth layer of the Ascending Soul Realm. Everyone was scared out of their wits. This was too frightening. Moreover, this was not an ordinary challenge. It was a life and death battle in the life and death arena. Would Chu Yang dare to do it if he didn't have the slightest bit of assurance? Chapter 407. Peng. A sudden muffled sound caught everyone off guard. Everyone was stunned as they clearly saw the fat man behind Xie Xuewen hit Xie Xuewen on the back of his neck with his fat hand, knocking Xie Xuewen unconscious. Junior Brother Chu, this thing wants to save face. You don't have to take him seriously. Just treat what he said just now as nonsense. I will also use my fat body to guarantee that he will definitely not dare to resent Junior Brother Chu in the future. This fatty. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes and stared at Jin Duoduo, causing Jin Duoduo to jump. He bounced up like a ball. I say, Junior Brother Chu, can you not look at me like that? I just want to save a life. Junior Brother Chu, please do me a favor and be magnanimous. A prime minister's stomach can support a boat, and a general's arm can run a horse. Spare my fat body. Was there a need? Everyone was speechless and stunned. Jin Duoduo Inner Peaks Wood Element Peaks True Disciple, an 8th layer ascending soul tier cultivator, was afraid of a new disciple like Chu Yang. This was very inconceivable, causing everyone to be dumbfounded. Chu Yang was also surprised. He was definitely not a match for an 8th layer ascending soul tier cultivator. What was wrong with this fatty? Could it be that he looked so invincible now? What happened next made everyone even more dumbfounded. Junior brother Chu, you just bet 15,000 merit points. 10 times that would be 150,000 merit points. As an apology, I will double it and give you 300,000 merit points. How about we let this matter pass? 300,000 merit point. He had actually given out a total of 150,000 merit point. Hiss. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They thought to themselves, is this fatty a coward, or does he have other plans? Chu Yang was really stunned, but he didn't refuse. Right now, he was basically surrounded by enemies. No matter what kind of monster you were, he didn't have to worry about debts. He directly agreed. Then, thank you very much, senior brother. No need to be polite, no need to be polite. Jin Duoduo was laughing in his heart. Everyone thought of him as an idiot. Only he thought that he had gained a great advantage. A monstrous genius like Chu Yang would definitely soar to the skies. However, to be able to form a relationship with him with a mere 150,000 merit points, where else could one find such a good thing? Me. A cold snort rang out, causing everyone's gaze to involuntarily shift. It was Jin Duoduo's sworn enemy, the thin bamboo Zhu Wenbing. Zhu Wenbing looked at Jin Duoduo with a sneer and ridicule. Although he did not say anything, his meaning was clear. Not only did you stop Xie Xuewen, you even tried to befriend this Chu Yang. You're dead. The burning sky holy sun and the others will definitely remember you. What are you snorting for? Jin Duoduo directly retorted, the 300,000 merit points I gave junior brother Chu were won from you. After a pause, Jin Duoduo pointed at Zhu Wenbing and said to Chu Yang, Junior brother Chu, do you see this bamboo? He bet 300,000 merit points on Prince Mo's victory. I think you should pay attention to him. 300,000 merit points on Prince Mo's victory. There was too much information. 300,000 merit points was definitely not a small amount even for a true disciple. This bamboo was so confident that Prince Mo would win. It seemed that there was definitely some information, and where did the information come from? Chu Yang narrowed his eyes, and his dangerous gaze landed on Zhu Wenbing, the cultivation of the 8th layer of the ascending soul realm. Damn pig, you! When Zhu Wenbing was stared at by Chu Yang, he could not help but fly into a rage. However, he immediately snorted and coldly looked at Chu Yang. A mere 5th layer of the Chi soul realm actually dared to show off in front of him. How impudent! Thin bamboo, you don't seem to be convinced. Come and spar with me. Chu Yang directly crooked his finger at Zhu Wenbing. Instantly, the crowd burst into an uproar. Chu Yang was simply too daring. He even dared to look down on an 8th layer of the ascending soul realm, and he even dared to provoke him. Chu Enei's heart and liver were about to explode. This damned little sheep was really going to scare her to death. The 8th layer of the ascending soul realm was definitely an existence that they looked up to, and Chu Yang actually took the initiative to provoke him. Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and the others were all stunned. As for Chu Renxian, Gong Shong, Cheng Feng, and the others, they were even more shocked. They felt that Chu Yang seemed to have completely gone crazy. Chai Guiyuan of the Black Wolf Gang, Qing Letong of the Puppet Pavilion, and Zhua Haoxi of the Heavenly Sword Gang were all shocked. However, they also rejoiced. Fortunately, they did not provoke this Chu Yang. Otherwise, it was very likely that they would end up like Prince Mo. Chapter 408. Humph, you don't deserve it. Zhu Wenbing coldly snorted and left with a swish. He didn't make a move in the end because he really felt a little strange. In addition, Chu Yang was indeed extremely unusual. He didn't need to take risks for this little bit of face. Looking at Zhu Wenbing leaving, the audience couldn't help but be stunned. Jin Duoduo also narrowed his eyes. This Zhu Wenbing was really vigilant. Looking at Xie Xuewen beside him, He couldn't help kicking him and cursing secretly. Look at what kind of brain he has, and what kind of brain you have. Damn it, why did I teach such an idiot friend? Interesting. Doesn't anyone think that I'm just bluffing and putting on a brave front? As soon as Chu Yang said this, Jin Duo couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Sure enough, he was the same as his boss. He immediately dug a hole after eating someone. Those who didn't know and listened to his nonsense would definitely cry blindly. Chu Yang, do you know your crime? As soon as Zhu Wenbing left, a roar full of killing intent came from afar. Everyone couldn't help but look over immediately. They saw that in the distance, many people were flying toward the life and death arena. All of them were wearing the uniform of the Guardian disciples. They flew quickly and arrived at the life and death arena in an instant. As soon as they landed on the life and death arena, they immediately surrounded Chu Yang. Two of them sneered. Humph, Chu Yang, what did I say before? You violently resisted the law, which is a capital crime. Now, you'll suffer. Yes, today, no matter how powerful you are, you can't escape from the disaster. These two Guardian disciples were the two who were scared away by Chu Yang 3 days ago. Chu Yang glanced over and sneered, I was wondering who it was. It turns out to be the two of you who were defeated by me. Why, relying on your advantage in numbers to intimidate others? Why don't you see where this place is and what's on it? The life and death arena, a corpse. The two Guardian disciples were instantly shocked. They couldn't help but take a step back. However, they immediately became furious again. Chu Yang, how dare you be so arrogant? I'll let you know how powerful I am in a while. Both of their faces became extremely ugly as they cursed fiercely. In front of others, they were actually scared by Chu Yang and retreated. They had lost a lot of face. Enough. Ma Wenbing, Li Zian, the elders did not send you here to quarrel with others. There was a loud shout and an imposing aura. In the blink of an eye, they landed on the life and death arena. They were two disciples who had imposing appearances. Their gazes were like lightning, and they walked with majestic gait. Seeing these two Guardian Hall disciples, Chu Yang's eyes narrowed slightly. 7th level of the ascending soul realm, the auras of these two people were powerful and mighty, and they faintly revealed an extremely faint smell of blood. Their aura of slaughter was extremely dense. You must be Chu Yang. The Guardian Elder invites you, please come with us, one of the custodians said to Chu Yang. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes as thoughts flashed through his mind. This situation in front of him, two 7th level ascending soul realm custodians and more than a dozen Guardian Hall disciples lined up in a row. They made it clear that no matter what method they used, they were going to forcefully invite him to the Guardian Elder. Chu Yang's mind turned at lightning speed. Although this lineup in front of him was a bit big, it was not very surprising. They had endured for a period of time, and were finally going to make a move. Haha, come at the right time. Lead the way. It just so happens that I also have some matters and want to see the Guardian Elder. Chu Yang immediately made a decision. Since he could not avoid it, then let's see the real thing. He extended his palm, indicating for the two to lead the way. His expression was calm, without the slightest hint of panic, making the surrounding custodians surprised. If ordinary disciples were invited by the Guardian Hall, which one would not be terrified? As for Chu Yang, whether he really had something to rely on or was audacious to the extreme, they did not know. Everyone below the arena was also extremely shocked. This Chu Yang actually offended the Guardian Hall and the Guardian Elder. Chapter 409. It's over, it's over. This Chu Yang is definitely finish. This Chu Yang is really gutsy. In our divine command peak, only he dares to disregard the Guardian Elders like this. I wonder how those butchers in the Hall of Guardians will deal with him. Humph. He's dead for sure. How can a disciple fight with an elder? You guys are actually admiring his stupidity, the crowd discussed animatedly. The disciples of the Hall of Guardians all had extremely ugly expressions. Their expressions were cold and contained killing intent. This Chu Yang was too arrogant. The two 7th level ascending soul realm disciples looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. However, The two did not say much. They extended their palms and said, "Let's go." A line of more than a dozen disciples of the Hall of Guardians had sinister and vicious gazes. They clearly wanted to teach Chu Yang a lesson. Just now, Chu Yang actually dared to scare them. Who in the Hall of Guardians dared to be disrespectful? Immediately, more than a dozen of them divided into two human walls and sandwiched Chu Yang in the middle as if they were escorting a prisoner. When they escorted him to the Hall of Guardians, their auras crushed him even more ruthlessly. Let's see how this brat can still be arrogant. He's dead for sure. Ma Wenbing and Li Xian looked at Chu Yang's back and secretly swore in their hearts. Such a way of escorting a prisoner and parading him in public was first of all a way of humiliation. It not only relieved the hatred in their hearts, but also crushed Chu Yang with their auras. It could also intimidate the other disciples in the sect and eliminate the influence just now. However, they immediately felt that something was wrong. Not only was Chu Yang not suppressed by their auras, but instead faintly restrained their auras for his own use. Originally, the intention of the disciples of the Hall of Guardians was to humiliate Chu Yang and intimidate the other disciples. But gradually, they became the center of attention. They surrounded and protected Chu Yang as they escorted him to the Hall of Guardians. What's going on? There are so many of us, but we actually can't suppress one person's aura. Ma Wenbing and Li Xian's expressions changed. This Chu Yang was too monstrous. This kind of sign became more and more obvious. At first, it was only the ordinary disciples of the Lawkeeper Palace who were affected, but later, even the two experts of the Lawkeeper Palace who were in the 7th level of the Ascending Soul Realm felt something strange, and their expressions changed one after another. You're courting death. You actually want to restrain our chi. The expressions of the two Ascending Soul Tier elites of the Law Protector Palace were slightly angered. Their chi activity surged, exuding a powerful aura that was as heavy as a mountain, enveloping Chu Yang. Their expressions changed again. They felt as if their auras had merged with the stars as soon as they approached Chu Yang. It was as if the stars were surrounding the moon, protecting Chu Yang, the moon. What's going on? This brat is actually so shocking. Their expressions changed slightly. Ch, you want to suppress me? You are too naive. In the middle of the two rows of human walls, Chu Yang's gaze was like lightning, sneering coldly in his heart. This group of Lawkeeper Palace disciples wanted to take him down a notch and make an example out of him. How could Chu Yang not know? Unfortunately, they found the wrong person. It was simply impossible for Chu Yang to resist the auras of so many Lawkeeper Palace disciples with his own strength. Disregarding other things, the two 7th level Ascending Soul Realm powerhouses of the Lawkeeper Palace were not what he could deal with. But something like aura, apart from each person's strength, what was more important was the comprehension of heaven and earth. Human strength was limited, heavenly power was endless. Only by obtaining the general momentum of heaven and earth, that was momentum. As for momentum, this was Chu Yang's advantage. Who present could understand momentum better than him? No matter what, he was also a level 3 array master now. These Lawkeeper Palace disciples were merely his array seals. Restraining their chi activity, the momentum on their bodies, and creating the effect of stars surrounding the moon was all too simple. A group of disciples of the Hall of Guardians was surrounding Chu Yang like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. Such a scene caused many disciples of the Five Elements sect to be extremely astonished. The Lawkeeper Palace disciples at the two sides were even more uncomfortable to the point of almost vomiting blood. Fortunately, they arrived at their destination very quickly. A mountain peak towered in front of them. On the mountain peak stood a large hall. This was the Lawkeeper Palace of the Divine Command Peak. Chapter 410. At this moment, the door of the Great Hall of Protectors was wide open. A short old man stood there like the scorching sun, causing the surroundings to fall silent. He had sword-like eyebrows, hawk-like eyes, hook-like nose, a lion's mouth, and a ferocious face. Although he was short, he had a powerful expression and his eyes were very sharp. This was the Guardian Elder of the Divine Command Peak's Hall of Guardians. As soon as he appeared, he looked down at Chu Yang from above, and the bone-chilling coldness in his eyes made people shudder. Chu Yang, you've got guts. You dare to disobey orders and violently resist the law. How should you be punished? The Guardian Elder's voice rumbled like thunder, like the voice of a god, as if it came from the ninth heaven. It was so majestic that it made the mountain tremble. When it fell into the ears of all the disciples, those who were more timid were so scared that they directly fell to the ground. Humph! Chu Yang snorted coldly, "You're trying to intimidate me as soon as you arrive. It's not like I haven't been to the court before. That's what it means to be solemn, sacred, and intimidating. Who do you think you're trying to intimidate with your roar?" Especially when he felt the strong killing intent of the Guardian Elder towards him, there was no respect in his heart at all. "Elder, you've asked a good question. I was just about to complain to the Hall of Guardians." Chu Yang was already prepared. As the guilty party, he complained first. He turned around and pointed at Ma Wenbing and Li Xian behind him. The disciples of the Hall of Guardians bully the weak. According to the rules of the sect, what should be the punishment? Chu Yang's actions were beyond everyone's expectations. Ma Wenbing and Li Xian didn't expect that they would be checkmated first. They were both shocked. "Chu Yang, don't slander us. How dare you speak nonsense in front of the elder?" The Guardian Elder's eyes were even colder, and a fierce aura flashed past. He also didn't expect that Chu Yang would involve Ma Wenbing and Li Xian. Ma Wenbing and Li Xian were arrogant and domineering, so Chu Yang's violent resistance didn't exist. As for evidence, was there any? Ma Wenbing and the others said that Chu Yang was violently resisting the law, while Chu Yang said that they were arrogant and despotic. Each of them had their own version of the story, and the Guardian Elder knew this better than anyone else. "Ma Wenbing and Li Xian were ordered by me to arrest you. Whether they're guilty or not, I'll be the one to decide. It's not up to you to make thoughtless remarks." The Guardian Elder snorted coldly. "Haha, Guardian Elder, if that's the case, you're going to play favoritism and cover up for them. Humph. If the Emperor breaks the law, he will be punished the same as the commoners. The Protector has violated the sect's rules by beating up a disciple of the Hall. Is there an exception?" Chu Yang laughed out loud and said, "Today, many disciples of the Five Elements sect have gathered here. Whether or not the Hall of Guardians can convince the masses, and how to convince the masses, will depend on how the elders deal with it." "Damned lowly bastard." The Guardian Elder was instantly enraged. A mere inner sect disciple was actually so insolent in front of him, not fearing that he would disrespect him in the slightest. Moreover, his words were sharp and overbearing. With just a few words, he had implicated the prestige of the Hall of Guardians, which was extremely damaging. He glanced over again, and his eyes couldn't help but narrow. Behind Chu Yang, there were many disciples of the Five Elements sect. There were disciples of the Divine Command Peak, and there were also disciples of the other peaks. If he didn't deal with it well today, the Divine Command Peak would become the laughingstock of the other peaks. "Shua." The Guardian Elder's sharp gaze instantly fell on the two seventh-layer ascending soul-tier Guardian disciples. He was obviously saying, "What's the matter with you two? Why did you attract so many disciples?" How would he know what had happened on the life and death platform? These two Guardian disciples were also extremely sullen. "This couldn't be blamed on them. You were the one who told us to immediately go and capture Chu Yang. That was why such a commotion was created. In addition, the Hall of Guardians wanted to deal with someone like Chu Yang, so it naturally attracted the attention of many people." Chu Yang's voice was loud and clear, and it spread in the surroundings. When it reached the ears of the various disciples, they all felt that it was fresh and surprising. The disciples of the Great Hall of Guardians naturally represented the Guardian Elders. No one had ever thought that someone would actually dare to complain about his disciple in front of the Guardian Elder. This Chu Yang's courage is too big. Chapter 4:11. Chu Yang's words were like earth-shattering. As soon as he spoke, many of the Five Element sect's disciples buzzed like countless flies. For a moment, it was extremely noisy. This Chu Yang is really amazing. He's really sharp. With just a few words, he simply humiliated the Grand Guardian in front of us. The five-element sect's disciples felt that it was inconceivable. Arrogant. As expected, arrogant enough. I like it. Among the many disciples, when the Grand Guardian was mentioned, which one of them wasn't in fear and trepidation? For so many years, who knows how many disciples have died in the hands of the Grand Guardian. Today, I didn't expect that among the disciples, there would finally be someone who dared to turn around and slap the Grand Guardian's face in front of him. This is simply our example. The crowd gathered outside the Grand Guardian's hall felt relieved and excited. The Grand Guardian's hall was extremely powerful and had an extremely high status. All the Grand Guardian's disciples were arrogant and didn't put others in their eyes. Usually, when the five-element sect's disciples saw them, which one of them wasn't respectful? Moreover, many of the Grand Guardian's disciples were extremely arrogant and domineering, but many disciples didn't dare to speak out. Now, someone stood out to provoke and teach them a lesson. Everyone felt that they had vented their anger. Chu Yang had no backing and no background. Moreover, compared to the ordinary disciples, he was oppressed and persecuted more severely. He was simply the most typical portrayal of the many disciples. Therefore, many of the disciples had unknowingly taken Chu Yang as their representative, and were mentally standing on his side. Seeing that he was still able to talk and laugh freely in front of the protector elders, and even using sharp words and sneering sarcastically, they couldn't help but admire him. Faintly, when they looked at Chu Yang, they felt as if they were the ones who were criticizing the Grand Guardian's elder. Every one of them was excited and their blood boiled. They had a feeling in their hearts, if only I could be like him. In front of the Grand Guardian's hall, although the Grand Guardian was as calm as Mount Tai, when he saw the reaction of many disciples, he felt like everyone was pushing a man who was down. Being threatened by such a big force made the killing intent in his heart burn even more fiercely. How could he not know Chu Yang's intentions? His eyes flashed, and he coldly snorted, "Chu Yang, you've got guts. You dare to question my words? Also, what do you mean by if the emperor breaks the law, he will be punished the same as the commoners? Are you trying to use those lowly secular laws to control our martial arts sects?" Was he an idiot? There had never been such lowly laws. It was just that the actual situation was different, so the laws and regulations were different. As long as there were people, there would be rules, and they would be applicable everywhere. So what if it was a martial arts sect? Powerhouses also needed laws and regulations to protect their status and rights. As law enforcers, they had the right to enforce the law regardless of whether they were in the country or in the sect. However, they were also bound by the law. Every law enforcer's violation of the law would also be magnified. This guardian elder was not strong enough to disregard all the rules and regulations of the five-element sect. He was merely a guardian elder, and his status was even lower than the peak masters of the various peaks. How could he dare to be so arrogant? Humph! The law was merciless. Since it was the sect's commandment, everyone had to abide by it. Not to mention 2 disciples of the Guardian Hall, even if you, a guardian elder, had committed a crime, you would also be punished. If you deserve to die, you will be executed. Chu Yang despised him in his heart and coldly said. His clear voice was extremely loud, and it resounded in the ears and hearts of every disciple. Especially the sentence, "If you deserve to die, you will be executed." That resolute and powerful voice shocked many people. The guardian elder, "If you deserve to die, you will be executed." How bold! How dare you! The guardian elder's face was livid. With a bang, his short body suddenly took a step forward. The aura on his body surged, and a terrifying pressure spread out from his body like a tide, spreading out and enveloping the surroundings. Soul pressure, huh? Thump. Thump. Chapter 412. Chu Yang, you are simply lawless and have no respect for your superiors. In the Divine Command Peak, my words are the rules of the sect. No one can interfere. You have violated the rules of the sect, which is a capital offense. No one can save you. The overbearing and cold voice was like the rumbling of thunder, shaking everyone's heart. The cold and murderous aura revealed in the voice caused everyone's expression to change. Your words are the rules of the sect. Guardian Elder, how dare you? Chu Yang directly pointed at the guardian elder. Do you think the five-element sect is your backyard? Do you think the rules of the five-element sect are all toys in your hands? Wantonly trampling and blaspheming the rules of the sect. Do you still have the five-element sect in your eyes? Do you still have the five-element sect's sect master? Do you still have the 15 peak masters of the 10 outer and inner peaks? Do you want to rebel? Every sentence was heart-wrenching. As soon as these words came out, everyone turned pale with fright. Who would have thought that Chu Yang wouldn't be frightened or fearful under the guardian elder's display of power? Instead, he would confront the guardian elder head-on. In fact, he would even accuse the guardian elder. In fact, he would even accuse the guardian elder of the crime of rebellion. This would have shocked everyone to the core. But these words were obviously logically valid. In an instant, not only the spectating disciples, even the guardian disciples' expressions changed greatly. Chu Yang continued angrily, "What are the rules of the sect? They are the rules and regulations that everyone in the sect has to abide by. Not to mention you, a mere guardian elder, even the sect master has to abide by them. The guardian hall is only a substitute for the sect master. You, a mere guardian elder, actually dared to say such shocking words like my words are the rules of the sect. Just based on this point alone, you deserve to die. The rules and regulations of the sect are to protect the sect's disciples, protect justice, and the sect's prestige. But as a guardian elder, not only did you not follow the rules, you actually took advantage of the authority granted to you by the sect to wantonly oppress and persecute the sect's disciples, threatening the foundation of the sect. Not only did you fail in your duties, you also committed the crime of causing chaos in the sect, treason, and betraying your master and ancestors. If I don't kill you, the heavens will not tolerate it." Chu Yang's voice was stern and forceful. Every word was as sharp as a sword. Thump, thump. Hearing Chu Yang's words, the guardian elder was so shocked that he staggered back a few steps. He had realized that his words just now were indeed extremely inappropriate. No, it should be said that they were extremely deadly. Boom. Many of the spectating disciples were in an uproar, and all of them revealed astonished expressions. Chu Yang's words were too shocking. The guardian hall was in charge of the rules of the sect. All the disciples had long been accustomed to the authority of the guardian hall. There had never been anyone who questioned the authority of the guardian hall like Chu Yang did. For many of them, the Hall of Guardians was in charge of discipline, which also represented the sect's discipline. Therefore, the guardian elder's sentence of "my words are the rules of the sect" was not too inappropriate in many people's eyes. Because everyone was already used to it. However, Chu Yang was different. The bigger fist was the law. This was not wrong. However, the rules of the five-element sect were indeed set by the biggest fist of the five-element sect. Everyone had to obey. Of course, this was the advantage of Chu Yang as a person of 2 lifetimes. His way of thinking was different, and his knowledge of the law should be unmatched by many. Therefore, when the guardian elder said "my words are the rules of the sect," it was tantamount to giving Chu Yang a great handle. He grasped this point and used all his strength to accuse the guardian elder. It was definitely enough to make the guardian elder suffer. At least, no matter what, Chu Yang put such a big accusation today. In the future, the authority of the Hall of Guardians would be greatly affected. If the five-element sect did not deal with the guardian elder, the dignity of the five-element sect would be questioned. If one did not seek death, one would not die. In his previous life, a single sentence of "my father is Li Gang" had caused a huge uproar. This guardian elder was even worse. The former was a trap set by his own son, while the latter was a trap set by himself. He had never seen such a stupid person before. Chu Yang ridiculed in his heart, but he knew the reason. It should be that the guardian elder was used to being domineering. The guardian elder was so angry that his lips trembled. He had been in charge of the Hall of Guardians for so many years, and he had never met such a sharp-tongued disciple. At this moment, he also felt that if he let Chu Yang speak again, he would really lose all his dignity. He might even be punished by the sect. "Little bastard, your guts are simply too big. I don't believe that I can't deal with a little inner disciple like you." Chapter 413. The Guardian Elder's face turned ashen as a chilling murderous aura shot out from his eyes. He was very clear that to deal with such a sharp-tongued disciple like Chu Yang, it would be foolish to talk about reasoning. Only by using absolute martial power could he completely subdue him. Moon-plucking hand, capture him, boom. The moment the Guardian Elder's palm stretched out, a vast and boundless spirit energy gushed out. It seemed as if the spirit energy was boundless. It transformed into a hand that glowed with starlight, and went to grab Chu Yang's head. How powerful was the Protector Elder? The moment he made a move, it was simply enough to make the sky fall and the earth rend. Not to mention Chu Yang, even a direct disciple wouldn't be a match for the Guardian Elder. Spiritual energy, soul reincarnation realm. Chu Yang instantly sensed the Guardian Elder's realm. It was the soul reincarnation realm, but he wasn't sure which realm it was at. After the soul ascension realm was the soul reincarnation realm. There were 9 levels to the soul reincarnation realm. When one's martial soul was upgraded, one's origin energy would be refined into spiritual energy. The quality of spiritual energy was at least 1 grade higher than origin energy. The difference between origin energy and spiritual energy was like the difference between true energy and origin energy. One was a wooden sword while the other was a real sword. The difference was like heaven and earth. The moment the Guardian Elder made his move, spiritual energy surged. It was undoubtedly the soul reincarnation realm. The soul reincarnation realm. Even if Chu Yang unleashed all of his combat strength, he wouldn't be able to resist it. He couldn't even shake off the lock of the giant hand. It was as though he was a lamb being targeted by a wolf. Since he couldn't shake it off, he might as well not move. He would fight to the death. You're a Guardian Elder. I'm just stating the facts and stating the truth. Since I don't agree with you, you're going to kill me out of anger. There are so many disciples here. I'd like to see if you dare to kill me. Chu Yang stared coldly at the Guardian Elder. He didn't even look at the moon-plucking hand above his head. His expression was calm and there wasn't a trace of fear on his face. He continued to berate coldly, if you kill me, I'd like to see how you're going to convince the others in the future. Do you still have the face to uphold the rules of the sect? The Guardian Elder's biggest mistake today was that he shouldn't have taken him away in front of so many people. He shouldn't have tried to intimidate him in front of so many people. An inner disciple was indeed insignificant and couldn't shake the Guardian Elder. Otherwise, no matter how sharp Chu Yang's words were, it would be useless, and his death would be in vain. But now, things were different. Not only had Chu Yang grasped the Dharma Protector Elder's weakness, but there were also numerous disciples watching. Layer after layer of densely packed Dharma Protector Elders were like an incomparably enormous force. Let alone the Guardian Elders, even the sect leader of the 5-element sect did not dare to ignore this force and blatantly trample on the rules of the 5-element sect. Otherwise, if the people's hearts were scattered, what would be the 5-element sect? How could he be the sect master? Therefore, as long as Chu Yang stood firmly on the side of reason, no matter how arrogant his words were or how sharp his words were, the Guardian Elder would definitely feel a lot of pressure if he wanted to kill him. Of course, Chu Yang didn't like this feeling. He felt very aggrieved to put his life on the line with such uncertainty. Buzz. Chu Yang's calm expression and cold words fell into the Guardian Elder's eyes and ears. His body shook violently. Chapter 414. If I kill this little bastard, then in the future, the disciples of the 5-element sect will only have their fists as their reason. In the future, they won't care about any sect rules. When they have the strength, not to mention killing the Guardian disciples, they will even kill the Guardian Elder. Not good, I've fallen into this little bastard's trap. The Guardian Elder felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. A chill spread from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. His entire body was ice cold. If he killed Chu Yang, he would wantonly trample on and blaspheme the dignity of the rules. It was no different from destroying his own great wall and slapping his own face. All day long, he was pecked by the wild goose. He was angry and resentful. But what was the use of these emotions? Who asked him to look down on Chu Yang? He thought that Chu Yang was lawless and arrogant because he was spoiled. Now that he knew how powerful Chu Yang was, how could it be too late? Chu Yang had clearly calculated deeply. He had made one wrong move and then another. He had lost all his face and now he couldn't get off the stage. What the Guardian Elder never thought was that Chu Yang's arrogant reliance was actually the thousands of ordinary disciples inside and outside the Five Elements sect. These were disciples that he had never taken seriously before. How could the disciples of the past have Chu Yang's methods? In an instant, many thoughts flashed through the Guardian Elder's mind. His thoughts became clearer and he saw through Chu Yang's calculations even more thoroughly. 3 days ago, Chu Yang violently resisted the law. That was to attract the attention of the sect's disciples. It was also to buy time for himself to accumulate strength. After that, he calmly took the initiative to answer the call and attracted many disciples. In the end, he spoke arrogant words to anger himself and grasped his weakness. What was most laughable was that he actually took the initiative to give his weakness to Chu Yang. I can't kill him. I absolutely can't kill him. When all these thoughts came together, the Guardian Elder sucked in a long breath of cold air in his heart, and his body became even colder. From the very beginning, he had been completely targeted and schemed against by Chu Yang. This low-level disciple that he had never put in his eyes had formulated a rigorous plan that was completely enough to ruin his reputation. And when he was caught by Chu Yang's scheme had already succeeded. What a sharp mind. What a deep scheme. If I don't get rid of this kid, there will be endless trouble in the future. Boom. The moon-picking hand that was formed by the spirit energy was about to turn Chu Yang into minced meat. However, it suddenly collapsed and turned into a gust of wind. It blew Chu Yang's long hair and sleeves, making them flutter in the wind. Hoo! Chu Yang also let out a long breath of turbid air. His taut heartstrings finally relaxed. He had won the bet, but the feeling was not good. If he had the strength, he would have directly defeated him. There was no need to endure and rack his brains like this. Of course, Chu Yang did have a plan, but the plan could not keep up with the changes. In the life and death arena, when the disciple of the Hall of Guardians came to invite him, he just changed his plan temporarily. Such a temporary plan was too risky. Therefore, at the beginning, Chu Yang wanted to curse the Guardian Elder to his heart's content and vent his anger. It was better than doing nothing. How could this be enough? If he died, he would drag the Guardian Elder down with him and drag the entire Five Elements sect down with him. So what if he was an elder? The Five Elements sect was not his private property. If you dare to use the sect's rules to make things difficult for me, I will dare to use the sect's rules to put a hat on you. So what if it was the Five Elements sect? You spoiled such a Guardian Elder. If he killed me, what would your sect's rules mean? What face and prestige would you have in the martial arts world? The sect's rules were all bullshit. Wouldn't it be a joke? And if the sect's rules were all bullshit, who would believe the words of the Five Elements sect in the future? Not only that, many of the Five Elements sect's disciples who saw this scene today would definitely be disheartened. In the future, even if they were to betray the sect, they would not feel the slightest bit of guilt because this was done according to the rules of the Five Elements sect. There was nothing one could say. What was the difference between the Five Elements sect and the Devil sect? If the Five Elements sect leader knew about Chu Yang's plan, he would probably have the heart to kill Chu Yang. Chu Yang, you are really good. I tested you, but your expression didn't change at all. You're not afraid of power, and you're unyielding. It seems that there are indeed a few rats in the Hall of Guardians. After I punish you today, I'll definitely punish the Hall of Guardians. Shameless. Chapter 4:15. Chu Yang's expression changed. This was the sorrow of the weak. No matter how hard you tried, no matter how sharp your attack was, it would not hurt you at all. This was the case now. The Guardian Elder had only tolerated and compromised. He had casually turned killing him into testing him. What could he do? The Guardian Elder waved his sleeves and swept away all the shame in his heart. He forcefully suppressed the murderous intent in his heart. Chu Yang, let me ask you. In the space of thunder, You disregarded morality and killed the disciples of the Soul Devourer clan and the Longhu sect. You destroyed the relationship between the Five Elements sect and the two sects. Do you plead guilty? It's actually this crime? Chu Yang was surprised. He originally thought that it was because he killed Duan Zhengji and the other two. He never thought that it was because of the Longhu sect and the Soul Devourer clan. But what did the deaths of the Soul Devourer clan's Murong Huan and the Longhu sect's Yang Cheng have to do with him? Chu Yang's heart was filled with anger. He sneered and said, "Protector Elder, are you also testing me?" "Yes, Protector Elder, are you also testing me?" Haha. When the disciples heard this, they could not help but recall the shameless scene of the Guardian Elder. They could not help but burst into laughter. The Guardian Elder's face tightened and his face burned. He could not help but roar, "How dare you! I just learned from the Guardian Elder and made a joke." There is no need for the Guardian Elder to be so angry. Chu Yang sneered. "Since the Guardian Elder is serious, then I have to remind the Guardian Elder you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Guardian Elder, do you have any evidence?" The crisis was not over yet. This was just the beginning. Chu Yang's heart sank. "You still dare to quibble. You really won't give up until all hope is gone. Mo Shochi, come out." The Guardian Elder turned around and said to the Guardian Hall. Buzz. A disciple wearing the Soul Devourer clan's uniform walked out from the shadows of the Guardian Hall and quickly appeared in front of everyone. Long face, a very, very long face. If one were to talk about the face of a horse, the horse's face would not be as long as his. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes as he looked at the horse-faced man. He didn't recognize this person and had never heard of the name Mo Shochi. Disciple Mo Shochi greets Uncle Master. Mo Shochi bowed to the Protector Elder the moment he appeared, then stood respectfully to the side, waiting for the Protector Elder to interrogate him. The Five Elements sect is a righteous sect. As the Guardian Elder of the Divine Command Peak, I have the obligation to protect the sect's prestige. I will absolutely not allow a piece of rat shit to tarnish the Five Elements sect's reputation. After a righteous speech, the Protector Elder amiably said to Mo Shochi, "Martial Nephew Mo, if you have any grievances, feel free to speak frankly. The Soul Devourer clan, the Longhu sect, and the Five Elements sect are like a strip of water separated by a strip of water. Without the lips, the teeth will feel cold. If you have any grievances, I will definitely uphold justice for you. I will absolutely not tolerate evil." "Thank you, Uncle Master." Mo Shochi bowed respectfully to the Protector Elder again. Immediately, his eyes turned red and bloodshot. He suddenly pointed at Chu Yang, his eyes emitting a bone-deep hatred. "It's him. He colluded with the Thousand Devil sect in the Thunder Realm and used the Sky Thunder Beast to kill all the brothers of the Soul Devourer clan and the Longhu sect. Only I escaped. Uncle Master, please uphold justice for us." Boom. Outside the Great Hall of Protectors, a series of shocking voices erupted. Everyone was stunned by Mo Shochi's words. Colluding with the Devil sect to murder a fellow sect's disciple is a serious crime. It's even more serious than breaking the sect's rules. Impossible. How could such a thing happen? Although Chu Yang is very shocking, he doesn't have such strength. That's not necessarily the case. If not, how could Mo Shochi's eyes turn red the moment he saw Chu Yang? And the Soul Devourer clan and the Longhu sect's people being murdered can't be faked. We'll know once we investigate. Moreover, if Chu Yang colluded with the Thousand Devil sect, it makes sense that he killed the powerful disciples of the Soul Devourer clan and the Longhu sect. Chapter 416. Mo Shochi looked at the boiling crowd, and a trace of sinister pride flashed through his eyes. Just now, his acting was not bad, and this was also the reason why the Soul Devourer clan sent him to the Five Elements sect. The Dragon Tiger sect did not have such a talent, otherwise, it would not be just him, but two. Two people's accusations were much more powerful than one person's. Chu Yang looked at Mo Shochi, his killing intent dense. Those bastards from the Soul Devourer clan and the Five Elements sect actually had such a stupid idea, to join forces with those bastards from the Five Elements sect to kill him. He had to admit that this was greatly beyond his expectations. Elder Protector had actually summoned Mo Xiuqi long ago. Clearly, he had been prepared long ago. However, this was originally a groundless matter, full of loopholes. How could it stump Chu Yang? You said that I killed people from the Soul Devourer clan and the Dragon Tiger sect. Then who did I kill? Please tell me. Chu Yang's gaze was cold, sharp, and aggressive. You killed my senior brother Murong Huan and senior brother Yang Cheng from the Dragon Tiger sect. Murong Huan and Yang Cheng. After confirming that it was them, Chu Yang's expression became even more sarcastic. What's your senior brother Murong Huan's cultivation level, and what's your senior brother Yang Cheng's cultivation level? Mo Xiuqi was already prepared, and said angrily, although senior brother Murong and senior brother Yang are both in the 5th level of the Ascending Soul Realm, you colluded with the Thousand Demon sect, and even used the Sky Thunder Beast. How could they be your match? Ridiculous. Chu Yang laughed, making Mo Xiuqi's heart skip a beat. You keep saying that I killed someone, and who I killed. Then tell me, how did I kill them? There must be a process to killing someone. As long as you say something wrong and get caught, your lie will be exposed. I want to see how you make it up. Mo Xiuqi was filled with righteous indignation. Do you think I don't know your tricks? You obtained the 1000 Devil Thunder from the 1000 Devil sect and then tricked the Sky Thunder Beast into eating it. When senior brother Murong and senior brother Yang went to obtain the Heavenly Thunder Earthly Fire fruit, they were completely caught off guard. Because of the 1000 Devil Thunder and the thunderstorm power in the Sky Thunder Beast's body, they were directly blown to death. Your senior brother Murong and senior brother Yang were both killed by the explosion. What about the Hellfire fruits? Can you tell me what happened to them? Mo Xiuqi finally panicked. This was not the original plan. After he accused Chu Yang, the Guardian Elder was supposed to stand up, pin the crime on him, and kill Chu Yang. How could he allow Chu Yang to interrogate him? However, would the Guardian Elders dare to do so now? After what happened just now, the Protector Elder already knew how powerful Chu Yang was, so if he dared to stand up now, once Chu Yang completely refuted him, his reputation would be tarnished. If you don't want to answer, then I'll answer for you. Chu Yang sneered. Naturally, the Heavenly Thunder Earthly Fire fruit was also destroyed. According to your logic, I killed your senior martial brother without any motive, right? Who knows what your reason is? Mo Xiuqi immediately retorted, furthermore, your heart is vicious, just like those people from the Devil sect, killing people for fun. Interesting. Chu Yang's expression became even more sarcastic. Let me ask you again, you said that I colluded with the 1000 Devil sect, then who exactly did I collude with from the 1000 Devil sect? What's his surname, name, strength, and appearance? Mo Xiuqi's eyes flashed. Colluding with the 1000 Devil sect to harm the disciples of a friendly sect is a great crime. You did it in an extremely secretive manner. How would I know who it was? You don't even know who it is, and you say that he is a disciple of the 1000 Devil sect. Chu Yang's voice suddenly became sharp. You don't know who he is, and you say that I colluded with the 1000 Devil sect. Is there water in your head, or is there water in my head? Do you know how to lie? Do you need me to teach you? Mo Xiuqi choked, unable to refute. If I colluded with the 1000 Devil sect, don't tell me that I don't even know how to kill people to silence them, leaving an idiot like you to embarrass himself and make a fool of himself. Don't you even know how to lie? With these words, the surrounding disciples were once again in an uproar. Saying that Chu Yang colluded with the 1000 Devil sect, but didn't even know who the devil was, wasn't this too laughable? Could it be that you said you colluded, and everything you said was up to you? And the simplest thing was, Chu Yang was so stupid that he didn't know how to kill people, and let this horse-faced Mo Xiuqi kill him. Completely illogical, very laughable. That's right. Chu Yang didn't have a motive to kill people at all. If he wanted to kill people, it must be for the Hellfire fruit. He couldn't have blown up the Hellfire fruit and done all this for nothing. This horse-faced guy is really full of lies, full of flaws. Everyone was discussing. Mo Xiuqi heard the discussions around him, and his eyes were a little flustered. Before coming here, he never expected that he would be interrogated by Chu Yang. In any case, you are the one who murdered senior brother Murong and senior brother Yang. That devil from the 1000 Devil sect, I will definitely find him. Chapter 4:17. As soon as the one-armed young man appeared, there was a burst of exclamations. The surroundings went silent as everyone looked at him. Seeing this one-armed young man, Moshochi was already flustered. To be more precise, he was already terrified. Any outer sect disciple would feel fear when they were stared at and hated by thousands of disciples inside and outside the Five Elements sect. Not to mention Moshochi. How could it be like this? Moshochi was already in a state of panic. His heart was trembling. Forget about the core disciples and true disciples of the Five Elements sect, even the saint had appeared. Martial uncle, Moshochi looked at the guardian elder for help. Originally, he thought that this was just a simple mission. With him as a witness and the guardian elder's help, killing Chu Yang would be a piece of cake. But now, it seemed that not only would he fail to achieve his goal, but he would also die without a burial ground. Things had developed to this point. Not only Moshochi, but even the guardian elder had never expected that the Saint of Violence would appear. There was no doubt that his stance was clear. Now, he could not even protect himself. The Saint of Violence did not seem to have a good impression of Chu Yang. In fact, the Saint of Violence did not even know Chu Yang. But the guardian elder clearly knew that the Saint of Violence had a grudge against the Soul Devourer clan. Also, thousands of disciples were here. They were all looking at him and knew of his actions today. Damn it. The guardian elder was already frightened. Things had already escalated to this point. Moreover, it was no longer a simple problem. It concerned the dignity and face of the Five Elements sect. What he had done before was a complete disgrace to the Five Elements sect. Even if he did not die, he would lose a layer of skin. While everyone was sizing up the one-armed young man, the so-called Saint of Violence, Chu Yang was also observing him. The moment this one-armed figure entered Chu Yang's eyes, he felt as if countless demonic beasts had rushed into his consciousness. A wild aura seemed to have drowned his mind. Not only that, but there was also a hint of blood in this wild aura. Chu Yang felt that this violent holy sun could go berserk at any time and destroy everything. As he stood in the void, it was as if a door to a primitive world had opened, and a primitive aura rushed out faintly. Beast essence. The Zhun Yuan he cultivates is all beast essence. No wonder his title is so strange. If he explodes, he will definitely be extremely violent. Yes. While Chu Yang was observing the one-armed young man, the one-armed young man suddenly felt as if someone had seen through him. He couldn't help but be startled. He couldn't help but look at Chu Yang. The one-armed young man's gaze had the coldness and malice of a snake, the sharpness of an eagle, the pressure of a tiger, and the nobility of a dragon. It was very eye-catching. As soon as Chu Yang's gaze met his, he felt as if countless demonic beasts were pouncing on him. His spirit was shaken, and layers of phantoms appeared. Every demonic beast seemed to have pounced on empty air and bit on the phantoms. Not bad. The one-armed young man was secretly surprised. Greetings, Saint of Violence. All the disciples of the Five Elements sect present bowed to the one-armed young man after recovering from their shock. Their eyes were filled with awe, and many of them were filled with admiration. He has no malice towards me. At this moment, Chu Yang was also ecstatic in his heart. His original intention was to refute Moshochi and get rid of the trouble, that's all. He didn't expect that his unintentional action would actually cause such a huge commotion, and actually draw out a saint child. This time, his life should be safe. Li Niansheng, who is he? The one-armed young man did not point at Moshochi, but his sharp eyes looked at the guardian elder. Li Niansheng was the guardian elder's name. Chapter 4:18. Violent Saint, this matter, tell me who he is. Guardian elder Li Niansheng tried to explain but was interrupted by the one-armed youth. Instantly, guardian elder's face tightened as he felt humiliated. He could only tell the truth. This is the disciple of the Soul Devourer clan, Moshochi. What is his identity? Guardian elder's pupils shrank. While he was hesitating, the one-armed youth's eyes suddenly lit up as he released an aura to suppress him. Wang. The two of them confronted each other. In an instant, a cover appeared on both of them, but it disappeared in a flash. Not many people could clearly see what happened during this period of time. They only heard Li Niansheng's muffled groan and directly kneel down with a thud. Domain. It was a confrontation between domains. Chu Yang's heart trembled. This was the first time he witnessed a confrontation between domains of soul reincarnation realm experts. The saint child of violence was extremely brutal. His domain was like a human stomping a bug to death. He directly suppressed the guardian elder to the point that he couldn't even release his domain. Can you answer me properly now? The one-armed youth said coldly. What is his identity? Soul Devourer clan's core disciple. What is he doing here? Suing Chu Yang for murdering Murong Huan and Yang Cheng, guardian elder was extremely obedient. He answered every question and didn't dare to disobey at all. He no longer had the aura of I am the only one in the world and my words are the rules. Suing. The one-armed youth looked at guardian elder Li Niansheng coldly. It was as if he was looking at a hungry wolf looking at a lamb, causing guardian elder to shiver. Are you sure? Mo Shouqi is indeed here to sue Chu Yang. Guardian elder Li Nian insisted on this point. If they were to file a complaint, it would make sense for him to accept Mo Shouqi's complaint. After all, a commoner could still file a complaint against a corrupt official to the emperor. Furthermore, such a statement would definitely not disgrace the Five Elements sect. What is the relationship between Mo Shouqi and Murong Huan? What is his relationship with Yang Cheng? Also, Murong Huan is a lonely soul in the Soul Devourer clan. Does he not have any elders or family? After he died, he could only rely on a mere Mo Shouqi to sue and redress his grievances. When has the Soul Devourer clan been so sullen? Can you tell me about it? Murong Huan was a direct disciple of the Soul Devourer clan. Soul Devourer clan had even nurtured him as a saint. He even had a grandfather was an elder of the Soul Devourer clan. Guardian elder Li Niansheng knew very well that his lies were not valid. You can't say anything? The one-armed young man's gaze was extremely cold. He looked coldly at guardian elder Li Niansheng. I don't care what you and those ghosts in the sect are up to. Slap. Guardian elder was directly slapped. Instantly, the entire place fell into a dead silence. But, even if you don't care about your face, I still want my face. Slap. Another slap to the face. Even if you want to be a dog wagging its tail, I'm not interested. I don't mind if you're used to kneeling, but you can't make me kneel too. Slap. Slap. Every sentence was a slap to the face. The slap caused the guardian elder's cheeks to swell up and all his teeth to fall out. He looked extremely miserable. However, no one sympathized with him. His actions were a disgrace to the Five Elements sect. He made the Five Elements sect look like an obedient dog in front of the Soul Devourer sect. Guardian elder Li Niansheng could accept this, but the one-armed young man couldn't. He couldn't tolerate it, and this was the reason for this scene. It could be said that the one-armed young man didn't want to lose to the Soul Devourer clan. Many people in the Five Elements sect knew the reason, including guardian elder Li Niansheng. Li Niansheng, do you think you deserve to die? Boom. Everyone's heart trembled. Was the saint of violence going to kill the guardian elder? Chapter 419. Guardian elder Li Niansheng was still kneeling on the ground. He couldn't stand up and didn't know how to defend himself. The crowd was in an uproar. What the violent Holy Son said is right. A mere core disciple actually dares to come and slap our Five Elements sect's face. That's right. Back then, the violent Holy Son and his group of senior brothers were also in the Thunder Domain. They were humiliated by the Soul Devourer clan and a conflict broke out in the end. The violent Holy Son's elder brother was killed by the Soul Devourer clan. However, at that time, the Soul Devourer clan was very strong, so there was no explanation at all. Not only was there no explanation, I heard that the Soul Devourer clan's reason was that when the disciples of the two sects clashed, casualties were inevitable. If they died, they could only blame themselves for not being strong enough. As for the matters of the younger generation, the older generation doesn't need to interfere. Let them settle it themselves. When Chu Yang heard this, he immediately understood the reason why the one-armed youth was so angry. The friction between the Five Elements sect and the Soul Devourer clan was far more intense than he had imagined. You heard it, Li Niansheng. Slap. The one-armed youth ruthlessly slapped the Guardian Elder and sent him flying. When the two sects clash, casualties are inevitable. If they die, they can only blame themselves for not being strong enough. So, even if junior brother Chu really killed a member of the Soul Devourer clan, so what? And what did you do just now? Bang! With a whoosh, the one-armed young man appeared in front of the Guardian Elder in a flash. Then, he ruthlessly stomped his foot down. The Guardian Elder's body instantly bent like a bow. Then, he was directly stomped into the ground. A mere core disciple of the Soul Devourer clan, you dare to talk to him as an equal. A mere core disciple of the Soul Devourer clan, you dare to treat his bullshit framing as an imperial edict. A mere core disciple of the Soul Devourer clan, you dare to treat him like a master and serve. Bang! The one-armed youth seemed to get angrier as he spoke. He directly stomped the Guardian Elder into the ground and completely disappeared. Rumble. The ground exploded, and the Guardian Elder struggled out of the ground. His swollen face twitched, and his eyes were full of hatred. However, when the one-armed young man looked at him coldly, he fell to his knees again. Junior brother Chu, kill this insignificant disciple of the Soul Devourer clan. The one-armed youth looked at Chu Yang and said with a smile, "Can you be more straightforward?" Everyone present was shaken, shocked by the single-armed youth's decisiveness, domineering. The Soul Devourer clan dared to come to the Five Elements sect and slap their faces, so they must die. Thump. Thump. Mo Shochi was so scared that he kept retreating. His face was full of fear. He originally thought that this mission couldn't be any simpler, but it turned out to be like this. His life was at risk. Haha. After being stunned for a moment, Chu Yang laughed out loud. Although it's only a false accusation, and it's unavoidably a bit too much to kill, he's really evil. No matter what kind of place the Five Elements sect is, he dares to act presumptuously. If he doesn't kill the Five Elements sect, where will he put his face? Therefore, it's not that I want to kill him, but that he's courting death. Whoosh. Chu Yang looked coldly at Mo Shochi. Are you ready to die? You'll probably die very quickly. You'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. What if you lose? Mo Shochi saw that Chu Yang's cultivation was only at the Chi Soul realm, and saw a glimmer of hope for survival. He couldn't help but sneer. If you lose, can your Five Elements sect afford to lose? After saying this, he looked directly at the Saint of Violence, obviously waiting for the Saint of Violence to answer. If you win, you can safely leave the Five Elements sect. Haha. Hearing the one-armed youth's words, Mo Shochi completely threw caution to the wind. He sneered loudly and said, "What bullshit, Saint of the Five Elements sect, you don't even have the slightest bit of judgment. You're just a piece of trash at the Chi Soul realm, and you want him to kill me." Chapter 420. Senior Brother Violent, his words are a bit harsh. How about I teach him a lesson first? Chu Yang didn't even look at Mo Shochi. After a pause, he looked at the Five Element sect disciples behind him with a smile. Hey, why aren't you guys laughing? Doesn't this bug know that you guys don't know about my heaven-defying martial prowess? Haha. On the life and death arena, many people saw Chu Yang's amazement. Wang Zimo was also at the first layer of the ascending soul tier like Mo Shochi, but in front of Chu Yang, he was nothing. He was directly crushed into despair. All of a sudden, many disciples burst into laughter. Junior brother Chu, you must make this dog understand what you mean by "are you in despair?" That's right, the Soul Devourer clan is so self-aware. Junior brother Chu, let them see the might of our Five Element sect. Don't kill him too quickly, or else "are you in despair" is too difficult to understand. I'm afraid he really can't understand it. The clamor of the group of disciples made the many core disciples and true disciples of the Five Elements sect very surprised. Not to mention them, even the one-armed youth was very surprised. Just by a short observation, he knew that Chu Yang was extraordinary. However, he was still a little worried in his heart. However, the situation in front of him and the reaction of many five-element sect disciples made him very surprised. Mo Shochi was also very surprised. He didn't know where these idiots of the five-element sect got their confidence from. Didn't they know that it was absolutely impossible for a Chi soul tier to defeat an ascending soul tier? This was an unchanging principle of martial arts. Don't worry, I'll make him die very rhythmically. Haha. The disciples of the Five Elements sect burst into laughter again. Chu Yang's words had made them feel carefree. In fact, it was even more emotional than the words "Are you in despair?" Many true disciples, those who hadn't seen Chu Yang's strength, and the one-armed youth, couldn't help but look at Chu Yang at this time. They saw that Chu Yang's expression was very relaxed, and he didn't take Mo Shochi seriously at all. He smiled very brightly, showing 8 teeth. Are you ready? This time, I'll slap you on the right side of your face. Chu Yang was all smiles. He was even more arrogant than anyone present had imagined. His disdain completely enraged Mo Shochi. You! Pa! Before many people could understand what was going on, the crisp sound of a slap rang out. Unbeknownst to them, Chu Yang had already appeared where Mo Shochi was originally standing, while Mo Shochi was sent flying by the slap. Hey! Many of the true disciples of the Five Elements sect were extremely shocked. The one-armed young man's pupils couldn't help but tremble. Although this move seemed simple, there was too much logic behind it. At the very least, Chu Yang's strength had already completely suppressed Mo Shochi's. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to accomplish this. The more they thought about it, the more shocked the one-armed young man and the others became. They stared at Chu Yang in disbelief. Mo Shochi, how are you now? Are you more clear-headed? Chu Yang said indifferently. This time, you must be prepared. It's just a sneak attack. Before Mo Shochi could finish his words, another crisp sound rang out. Mo Shochi was sent flying again. Is this also a sneak attack? Chu Yang rubbed his nose. Am I not speaking human language? Why can't he understand? Haha. The group of Five Elements sect disciples couldn't help but burst into laughter again. Junior brother Chu, don't speak human language. How can a vicious dog understand? Are you saying that Junior brother Chu is a dog and can speak dog language? Be careful, Junior brother Chu will make you die very rhythmically. That's right, that's right. You deserve to be slapped. The Five Elements sect disciples were also very mocking. If Chu Yang wanted to kill Mo Shochi, there was no suspense at all. This Chu Yang is not simple. Chapter 421. Boom. On the other side, Mo Shochi pushed off the ground with his hand and stood up fiercely. It was as if he was venting all his humiliation and anger into the ground. With a loud bang, the ground exploded, and smoke and dust rose into the sky. Chu Yang, you are very fast, but do you think you can kill me like this? The voice came from between his teeth. At this time, Mo Shochi had already walked out of the smoke and dust, his face twisted and ferocious. Chu Yang glanced at him, stretched out his hand, and said, You seem to be very capable. Please, please show me. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Die. Mo Shochi roared. Following his roar, the void hummed, and ripples spread out. A huge wave of soul pressure pressed down on Chu Yang. However, what shocked him was that his soul pressure seemed to be just a gust of wind. It only raised Chu Yang's hair and fluttered Chu Yang's sleeves. Chu Yang didn't move from the beginning to the end, and the smile on his face never disappeared. Even the five-colored little beast on his shoulder didn't seem to be affected. Why? It only cried out non-stop, as if it was saying, Don't be too fierce, or you won't have a good time. This scene made the world go silent. Only Guari's cries could be heard. Even though they had seen Chu Yang resist the soul pressure of an ascending soul realm cultivator in the life and death arena, they were still shocked when they saw it again. How is this possible? He can actually resist the soul pressure. How did he do it? This was the question in the hearts of many core disciples and true inheritors. It was also the question in everyone's hearts. This was too shocking. This junior brother Chu is indeed not ordinary. My feeling just now was not wrong. I was worried for nothing. The one-armed youth looked at Chu Yang now, and his eyes were filled with shock. The Guardian Elders and the disciples of the Guardian Hall knew that Chu Yang was extraordinary because of Chu Yang's violent resistance. However, seeing it with their own eyes was far more impactful than hearing it. The most effective method of the ascending soul tier to the Chi soul tier has failed. Are you in despair now? Chu Yang's words caused the hearts of many to tremble violently. When they looked at Chu Yang again, they could only curse in their hearts, this monster. So what? Mo Xiuqi's heart was trembling, but he could not reveal it. If he did, he would die without a doubt, and there would be no more hope. Chu Yang, so what if you have the means to resist my soul pressure? Can your Zhen Yuan compare to mine? He was trying to find confidence for himself, looking for a reason to support himself. The reason of Zhen Yuan calmed his panicked heart slightly, and he said coldly, I can still kill you as easily as killing a chicken or a dog. Mo Xiuqi's words came to an end. In his eyes, he saw a figure quickly approaching him. Although he was already prepared and formed a shield with Zhen Yuan to protect himself, the shield was like a piece of paper. A hand directly pierced through it and grabbed his neck. How is this possible? How is this possible? His Zhen Yuan is even more shocking than mine. The ascending soul tier's Zhen Yuan was actually inferior to the Chi soul tier's Zhen Yuan. He did not need to be confused anymore. Chu Yang's hand directly broke his neck. You said that you can kill anyone as easily as killing a chicken or a dog. Mo Xiuqi could no longer hear this sentence, and the whole place was silent. The scene on the life and death arena repeated itself, and the people who saw it were still extremely shocked. A Chi soul tier killing an ascending soul tier cultivator as easily as killing a chicken or a dog, especially when Chu Yang was only at the 5th level of the Chi soul tier, 5 elements yuan. Ya. Xiao Guori's cry broke the silence. It was very angry, and felt that Chu Yang should not casually kill people. Chu Yang was too cruel, too cruel. Chu Yang heard Xiao Guori's cry and smiled bitterly in his heart. Who would want to kill? But how could they not kill? He killed people, he was so cruel, and he was so cruel. Today, he had to endure and be careful, racking his brains to save his own life. What else could he do? Moreover, he was lucky today, or the one who would be dead now would be him. Chapter 422. Chu Yang turned to look at him and flicked his little head. Little Guari, you're just a Hello Kitty. You can have opinions, but I'll ignore them. You'll ignore me even if I'm a Hello Kitty too. A rumbling voice came from the horizon, and 7 to 8 figures appeared instantly. Among them, a middle-aged man with a goatee glared angrily at Chu Yang and arrived at the scene in an instant. Goat. Sloppy king, fuck. This goat is only here now. He's obviously here to teach me a lesson. Chu Yang cursed in his heart. He naturally knew that Uncle Goat was Divine Command Peak's Peak Master, Sui Yunfu, and that sloppy great-uncle was Array Peak's Peak Master, Long Face. Apart from these two, there were also Thousand Sword Peak's Peak Master, Du Guangbua, Medicine Peak's Peak Master, and the rest. How would I dare to be the invincible and omnipotent Peak Master? Subconsciously, Little Six and Little Black realized that they were far less shameless than Chu Yang. Chu Yang's face immediately turned into that of a dog's. Almost all the 5 Elements sect disciples were speechless when they saw Chu Yang sucking up to Sui Yunfu. This Chu Yang. Chu Na and the rest were relieved, but at this moment, Chu Na couldn't bear to look at Chu Yang anymore. Peak Master, my respect for you is endless like the surging river, and also like smack. Sui Yunfu smacked Chu Yang hard on the back of his head, and it was like a flying sword that directly pierced into the ground. You still dare to laugh with me? Am I that close to you? Many people held back their laughter. Chu Yang was really in a sorry state, but from the tone of the Divine Command Peak's Peak Master, they knew that Chu Yang was definitely not in any danger. Chu Yang was also very depressed. Of course, he wasn't injured, but he directly pierced into the ground with his face. He might be the first person in history to do so. Goatee, I'll remember this. One day, I'll definitely make you bury your face in the ground. Since he was going to be beaten up anyway, and since he had already made a fool of himself, Chu Yang was too lazy to move. He pretended to be an ostrich, burying his head in the sand. He couldn't see anything, so there was no danger at all. This scoundrel. The Peak Masters couldn't help but laugh. Why? Only little Guari's cries could be heard. Its little claws pointed at Yun Fu, saying that he was too fierce. Little thing, you Hello Kitty, go to the side and stay there. Seeing that Chu Yang still did not move, Sui Yun Fu was both angry and amused. If you dare to play dead there again, do you believe that I won't kick you to death? Shua. Chu Yang propped his hands on the ground and pulled his head out. He immediately said in a flattering tone, the omnipotent, tall, mighty, extraordinarily handsome Peak Master of 1,000 times a night. I wasn't pretending to be dead just now. I was thinking about life. The one-armed youth was speechless. This brat was too shameless. Thinking about life, Sui Yun Fu snorted coldly. Then, with a bang, Chu Yang's face was buried in the ground again. Damn! Chu Yang was furious. He wasn't worried about being killed. Needless to say, there were so many disciples of the Five Elements sect here. If Sui Yun Fu wanted him to kill him, he wouldn't have said so much nonsense. He had already known Sui Yun Fu's intention when he had first opened his mouth. Rumble. The soil exploded. Chu Yang soared into the sky and said angrily, "Old bastard, what do you want? You made such a disgraceful old thing and took control of the entire Divine Command Peak. You still have the face. Do you still think you're in the right?" The disgraceful old thing was naturally Li Niansheng, the Guardian Elder. How audacious. Everyone's eyelids twitched. Chu Yang was really born in the year of the dog. He turned hostile just like that. Now, he even bit Sui Yun Fu. Chapter 423. Old bastard. Chu Yang actually dared to scold him in front of so many people. Sui Yun Fu was so angry that even his goatee stood up. He grabbed Chu Yang's leg and used it as a hammer to hammer the ground. Bang! 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 The ground shook. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in astonishment. Was this still the Divine Command Peak Lord, that rigid and serious guy? His nature has been exposed. The sloppy King Long Phage commented. Immediately, the other Peak Lords couldn't help but laugh. When Sui Yun Fu heard this, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. He also realized that he was abnormal. He wasn't this kind of person. It was just that a casual sentence from Chu Yang, this little bastard, made him angry. Then, he couldn't help but be shocked. He suddenly realized that the hammer in his hand seemed to be very powerful. It was wrapped in 5-colored true yuan. When it touched the ground seemed to automatically move away. 5 elements true yuan. Sui Yun Fu was shocked. When Chu Yang caused such a big commotion, he was the one who showed up. So, he naturally knew that Chu Yang was heaven-defying. He could resist the soul pressure of the divine soul meridian at the Chi Soul realm. However, he didn't know that Chu Yang cultivated true yuan of the 5 elements. The path he chose was also the most difficult to walk. He actually intended to cultivate the 9 most basic true yuan. Sui Yun Fu's eyes flickered. He glanced at the sloppy King Long Phage and the others from the corner of his eyes. As if they hadn't noticed, he immediately sent a threatening message. "Bastard, hurry up and put away your 5 elements true yuan. Do you think I'm stupid? I'm making a hammer right now." Chu Yang replied in his mind, but he didn't dare to scold him. This Divine Command Peak Lord was too unscrupulous. How could he copy him so easily? "If you keep talking nonsense, I'll use you to forge iron. You're amazing." However, it was too late. When Chu Yang replied, Sui Yun Fu heard waves of surprised cries. His face couldn't help but fall. 5 elements true yuan. This little bastard isn't simple. Did we make a loss in business before? Bullshit. The Divine Command Peak is a place to raise dogs and play with puppets. It's not suitable for a little bastard like him to stay in the Divine Command Peak. Naturally, it was Long Face and the other Peak Masters. "Hey, brat, are you interested in changing your mountain and going to the 1,000 Sword Peak?" 1,000 Sword Peak's Peak Master Du Guangbua. Chu Yang didn't dare to let out a fart. He was currently making a hammer. If it weren't for his strong body and powerful true elemental energy, he would have already died. But even so, his whole body's muscles and bones were shaking, and his entire skeleton was about to be shattered. Also, this guy's invitation was too insincere. If you had directly pressed the goat to the ground and rubbed it, this young master would have agreed immediately if he was no longer in danger. He really didn't know how to conduct himself. Kid, they seem to think highly of you. What do you think? Hoo. Sui Yunfu spun Chu Yang around like a windmill. The wind whistled loudly. What else can Chu Yang do? Your intentions are already very clear. That omnipotent peak master, I was born as a member of the Divine Command Peak, and I'll die as a ghost of the Divine Command Peak. They all don't know how to behave. Rumble. Chu Yang intended to be an expert, hinting at the peak masters, but his entire body directly smashed a huge hole in the ground. Not bad, I like you like this. Everyone in the surroundings was speechless. Even the Saint of Violence's mouth couldn't help but twitch. If the peak masters of the Divine Command Peak were like this, it seemed that this junior brother Chu was very popular. Many of the Five Elements sect's disciples naturally saw the fishy relationship between the peak masters, and couldn't help but feel envious. And only someone like Chu Yang would be fought over by the peak masters. The hammering stopped, but the peak masters knew that it was too late. They missed the time when Chu Yang would be deeply grateful. Peak Master, I didn't expect you to be my most handsome admirer. Sorry for the disrespect. Chu Yang's shadow was very large. The karmic retribution for the sins he had committed had finally arrived. He really wanted to say that he didn't believe in Buddhism, so don't do karmic retribution to him. If that was the case, he might go to the 18th level of hell after death, and he might have to do all the bad things in the future. My most handsome admirer. Chapter 424. Haha. It was unknown who laughed first, but it should be the new disciple. Only the new disciple knew that he was the most handsome. Sui Yunfu's face couldn't help but darken in the midst of everyone's laughter. Chu Yang, this little bastard, was obviously sincere. How could I, a peak master, become the admirer of a shameless person? Brat, prick up your ears and listen carefully. Sui Yun floated above Chu Yang's head and gave him a knock. After beating Chu Yang into a quail, he said, First, from now on, you are a core disciple of the Divine Command Peak. If you continue to bully the weak, I will skin you alive. Chu Yang didn't agree with the first point. What did he mean by bully the weak? He was the one who was being attacked by people all day. Ever since he entered the Five Elements sect, he had never stopped. Secondly, in the Divine Command Peak's core disciple competition in a month's time, you will be the champion of this competition. You can only educate the challengers, you can't kill or cripple them. Damn. A month later, the core disciples competition hasn't even started yet, and I, this young master, am already the number one. How many people would hate me? How many people would want to cut me into pieces? Didn't you want me to fall into the abyss of suffering? You want me to fall into the abyss of hell? I protest. Chu Yang turned from a quail into a hedgehog, his hair standing on end. I protest from the first point to the second point. Peak Master, what do you mean by bully the weak? I am simply a refugee in the Divine Command Peak. I am beaten black and blue all day, and you don't allow me to fight back. You said that I am loved by everyone, and I don't have a problem with that. But why are you making enemies for me? The core disciple competition hasn't even started yet, and you are already encouraging your senior brothers and sisters to beat me up. You have malicious intentions. This scene made everyone speechless. How was the Divine Command Peak Master still the Divine Command Peak Master? Moreover, they also realized that anything related to Chu Yang would easily become nonsensical. You have malicious intentions? Swish. Sui Yunfu instantly arrived in front of Chu Yang and started to beat him up. The muffled sounds were like firecrackers, endless. Yay. Xiao Guari jumped out and stood up. It pointed at Sui Yunfu with its little paw and cried out, loudly accusing him of being a bad person. Hello Kitty, go away. Little Guari was once again struck by Hello Kitty. Now, It didn't understand what was going on. Immediately, a contemplative and confused look appeared in its transparent eyes. So cute. In an instant, Chu Na, Wang Xiaoman, and even Yi Chimei, who saw this scene, could not help but feel extremely moved. The female disciples of the Five Elements sect all looked like them. Number 3. Sui Yunfu directly announced the third decision regarding Chu Yang's punishment. Face the wall at the peak, face the wall for 1 year. Was this some kind of protection? Chu Yang pondered in his heart. It would be difficult for someone to find trouble with him if he stayed at the facing wall peak. That omnipotent peak master, you've been sentenced to 1 year of imprisonment. Can you postpone the execution? Chu Yang had a fawning face. I, your little lackey, have a huge sum of money now. I want to go to the heavenly treasure hall to increase my spending and contribute to the prosperity of the divine command peak. H, you can give it a try. You don't even agree to this. Old bastard, I'll settle this score for you. Chu Yang was very depressed. If he could go to the heavenly treasure hall to exchange for wind and thunder treasures, he would be able to cultivate wind and thunder true essence very quickly in the face the wall peak. Yes, yes, yes. Little lackey, I'll go face the wall immediately and turn over a new leaf. With that, Chu Yang walked in the direction of the heavenly treasure hall. Where are you going? Sui Yunfu immediately saw through Chu Yang's intentions, causing Chu Yang to curse in his heart. Isn't it just going to the heavenly treasure hall? Do you have to be so discerning? That omnipotent peak master who knows everything, I've been fooled by your intelligence and wisdom. May I ask, where is the face the wall peak? Which direction should I go? Chu Yang really didn't know. Shio. Sui Yunfu's body moved, and he grabbed Chu Yang in an instant. His true energy surged, and he threw Chu Yang into the sky. When Chu Yang reached the highest point, his true energy erupted, and it turned into a prison carriage, rumbling away. YA. Chapter 425. Facing the wall peak. There were no peaks, but there were clouds. It seemed like he was in the clouds. Anyway, Chu Yang did not see the so-called peak. Under his feet, there was only a narrow space of about half a meter in length and width. The space was 0.25 square meters in size and surrounded by emptiness. In such a narrow space, he could only curl up into a ball to sleep. He couldn't even hover in the air. A half-meter tall cover covered him and confined his surroundings. He could only sit cross-legged and face the wall. No, there weren't any mountain walls. There were only clouds. He could only face the clouds. It could be said that this was a huge pillar that pierced through the clouds. Chu Yang could only stand on top of it and feel the wind. How was this facing the wall? This was simply being imprisoned. Even being imprisoned wasn't as miserable as this. Damned goat. I'll definitely slaughter you one day and make you drink goat giblet. Chu Yang wanted to cry, but no tears came out. This was too miserable. He didn't even know how to write the word human anymore. This was definitely a special treatment. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to receive such treatment. YA. After being stunned for a moment, Xiao Guari also cried out. It was basically saying that Chu Yang should learn his lesson and not dare to kill people anymore. Chu Yang didn't have the mood to care about this Hello Kitty. Even if he wanted to, he had to be able to stand straight. Was he trying to become a hunchback by hunching his back all day? Bang, bang, bang. He suddenly used his strength to attack the cover. However, the cover didn't move at all. On the other hand, his hand hurt quite a bit. Damn it. Which bastard set up this torture? He immediately used his genius martial soul and cosmic globe to analyze the cover. The conclusion made him collapse. It was a cover formed by a rank 6 array. A rank 6 array. Chu Yang didn't know what realm it corresponded to. He only knew that it was the soul reincarnation realm and the spirit realm. The soul reincarnation realm corresponded to a rank 4 array master, while the spirit realm corresponded to a rank 5 array master. He was only a rank 3 array master. The rank 6 array directly smashed onto his head, causing him to feel dizzy. Damn it. It's not giving me a way out at all. Chu Yang tried to look for the seal of the array formation and found it. If he could destroy the seal, he would have the possibility of escaping. However, he was quickly disappointed. The seal wasn't within the 0.25 square meters. Sigh, I'm really screwed this time. Which bastard is so ruthless? Do I really have to stay here for a year? After Chu Yang cursed for a while, he shuddered at the thought of it. He was not the kind of person who could remain motionless for a decade or so. Although he could cultivate, his cultivation speed was extremely fast. Therefore, being trapped in this extremely small space for a year was definitely enough to drive him crazy. If I manage to escape, the first thing I'm going to do is eat mutton skewers. Bastard goat. Bang bang bang. Chu Yang crazily attacked the cover again. The third cycle of Origin Martial, the third cycle of Chi Soul, all of his peak fighting strength burst out. Although he was hunched over in an extremely narrow space, he still burst out with his peak fighting strength. However, the cover still did not budge. Goat, you win. When I get out of here, if I don't lock you in a cage, I'll change my surname to yours. Chu Yang finally gave up. However, at this moment, the cover suddenly lit up and a line of words appeared. Hehe, who would be as unlucky as me? The gloating tone caused Chu Yang to be stunned. He was obviously not the first person to be tortured like this. Furthermore, the person who left behind these words had an extremely high cultivation in arrays. More words appeared on the cover of Light. We must resist such inhumane torture. Chu Yang didn't have much of a reaction at first, but when he saw the words below, he couldn't help but be stunned. Resist and curse with me. 5 elements old ancestor, you bastard. Chapter 426. Chu Yang couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. But, he immediately figured it out. So be it. Who can hear it in this godforsaken place? Who knows? He immediately scolded, 5 elements old ancestor, you turtle egg. Soon, the words appeared again, 5 elements old ancestor, you bastard. 5 elements old ancestor, you bastard. After scolding, Chu Yang looked at the words that appeared, and his mouth couldn't help but twitch. 5 elements old ancestor, you snake egg. Then, there were eggs, bird eggs, rabbit eggs, tiger eggs, lion eggs. Are you sure you're scolding and not crazy? Rabbits, tigers, and lions all have eggs. It seemed that this fellow could understand Chu Yang's feelings very well, and the light on the light shield became even brighter. Buzz buzz buzz. Following that, the entire 5 elements sect's face appeared on the light barrier. Next, the entire 5 elements sect's face appeared. Above the light barrier, the entire 5 elements sect was shaking violently. The Great Mountain Protection Array had been fully activated. It was as though a great enemy had arrived. At this moment, the entire 5 elements sect had fallen into a great turmoil. The inner 5 peaks are the Grand Central 5 Elements Array. The outer 10 peaks are the 10 Heavens 10 Peaks Array. The one between the 2 arrays is the Adjudication Array. The array formations on the light shield appeared in Chu Yang's eyes, and Chu Yang instantly had the most intuitive understanding of the overall array formation of the 5 Elements sect. Rumble. All of a sudden, the sound of thunder resounded between heaven and earth. According to the scene of the 5 Elements sect displayed on the light screen, where the Great Judgment Formation was located, which was also where the Great Judgment Hall was located, huge bolts of lightning shot out from the ground and bombarded the Great Judgment Hall from top to bottom. The entire Great Judgment Hall seemed to be like a small boat in the sea, shaking. Rumble. Soon, the entire Adjudication Hall collapsed, and smoke and dust soared into the sky. Damn. Chu Yang broke out in cold sweat. He just scolded the 5 elements old ancestor, and he actually caused such a big thing. If he was found out, wouldn't he be finished? The Judgment Hall was independent of the inner 5 peaks and the outer 10 peaks. It was located on the Judgment Peak between the inner 5 peaks and the outer 10 peaks. Its position was incomparably revered, but what had just happened? The Judgment Hall on Judgment Peak collapse. As fellow cultivators, how much hatred did they have for the Judgment Hall? Fellow Taoists, don't panic. Continue scolding. Later, Go to the Judgment Formation and steal the Heavenly Tribulation Liquid as well. Hey, that's good stuff. Lightning Tribulation Liquid. Chu Yang was tempted when he heard it. It was obviously a high-grade item, and with this Thunder Tribulation Fluid, he would be able to cultivate the innate Thunder body and break through to the Chi Soul Realm's 6 directions primordial realm. Since the Judgment Hall had already collapsed, he could only throw caution to the wind. Chu Yang could only hope that his fellow Daoist wouldn't screw him over until there was nothing left of him. 5 elements old ancestor, you egg-born thing. When you see someone with a sore on their head, you call them father. When you see someone with pus under their feet, you call them mother. It was still an egg, but as it went on, Chu Yang started to sweat. Greeting the entire family was just child's play. The scolding words at the end simply made Chu Yang feel admiration. At this moment, Chu Yang's scolding had already resounded throughout the entire 5 Elements sect. 5 Elements old ancestor, you egg-born thing. When you see someone with a sore on their head, you call them father. When you see someone with pus under their feet, you call them mother. 5 Elements old ancestor. 5 Elements old ancestor. The scolding was like thunder that rolled and resounded throughout the 5 Elements sect. It instantly caused the 5 Elements sect that had fallen into chaos to become still. Soon after, angry roars also resounded throughout the entire 5 Elements sect. Impudent, who is the impudent one? Which scoundrel is being impudent? I will definitely grind your bones to dust. The 5 Elements sect cannot be humiliated. Scoundrel, even if you escape to the ends of the earth, I will definitely dig you out. How dare you be impudent in the 5 Elements sect? You won't be able to escape. You will definitely die. When the angry roars of the 5 peak masters of the 5 inner peaks entered Chu Yang's ears, his heart couldn't help but tremble. This time, the stakes were too high. However, it wasn't just that. In the deepest part of the 5 Elements Hall of the 5 Elements sect, angry roars also resounded. Just the angry roars alone seemed to cause the entire sky to collapse. There was no doubt that it was the sect master of the 5 Elements sect. In addition, the Judgment Elder of the Judgment Hall. When Chu Yang looked through the light barrier, the Judgment Elder had already gone mad. He roared continuously and his voice shook the 9 heavens. The 10 peak masters of the 10 outer peaks were already shaken. However, what made Chu Yang's heart palpitate the most was that the old monster hidden in the 5 Elements sect was also completely alarmed. A few of his consciousnesses seemed to have already caught on to him. They should be able to determine his location very soon. The trouble he had caused was really too big. Chu Yang's level of trouble was on the same level as this fellow expert. However, his strength was on a completely different level. Chapter 427. Chu Yang had been imprisoned in a small space. So, it hadn't been long since he had started cursing. The disciples of the 5 Elements sect gathered in the Guardian Hall of the Divine Command Peak did not disperse. This was because the Peak Master of the Divine Command Peak, Sui Yunfu, was punishing the Guardian Elders. When Chu Yang cursed the 5 Elements sect's founder, this place was instantly in an uproar. Damn it! Who dares to be so bold as to insult our 5 Elements sect's founder? This is our 5 Elements sect, our territory. If we can't even retaliate when our founder is insulted, we will be ridiculed by the world. This person must die no matter what. This is intolerable. This person is absolutely intolerable. The disciples of the 5 Elements sect were all furious. Such a thing actually happened in the 5 Elements sect. This was a great humiliation to every disciple and every elder of the 5 Elements sect. Could it be someone from the Soul Devourer clan? Some disciples suddenly suspected the Soul Devourer clan. It's impossible for the Soul Devourer clan. Unless they are crazy, it's impossible. Then who else has the ability to activate the protective mountain formation? If it wasn't an expert of the Soul Devourer clan's level, how could the protective mountain formation be activated? What they said seemed to make sense. Could it be that our 5 Elements sect didn't give the Soul Devourer clan any face, so the Soul Devourer clan wants to humiliate our 5 Elements sect? Just now, our 5 Elements sect's new disciple, Chu Yang, killed a Soul Devourer clan disciple. Is the Soul Devourer clan retaliating? If it's really the Soul Devourer clan who insulted our founder, then let's go to war. We will fight them to the death. Chu Yang naturally didn't know about this. If he knew, he would probably break out in cold sweat. Everything was completely beyond his imagination. Senior Sister Chu, this voice seems to be Junior Brother Chu's voice. It can't be him, right? After Wang Xiaoman finished speaking, she was so shocked that she quickly covered her mouth. Chu Na also panicked when she heard this. Yi Chimei was right beside them. As for Chu Yang's voice, she couldn't be more familiar with it. If Wang Xiaoman could recognize it, how could she not? She hurriedly explained, how could it be him? Impossible. When Yi Chimei saw Chu Na's anxious expression, she couldn't help but smile. Junior Sister Chu, don't worry. The voice does sound like Junior Brother Chu, and Junior Brother Chu is also very astonishing. However, even the mountain protecting formation has been activated. It shouldn't be Junior Brother Chu. In other words, Chu Yang did not have the ability to do so. Chu Na and Wang Xiaoman didn't say anything. Yi Chimei didn't know about Chu Yang's ability to cause trouble, but they were very clear. Although it seemed impossible, nothing was impossible. Chu Yang had done too many impossible things. Just like Chu Na and Wang Xiaoman, Li Hao, Zhong Tian, Chu Renxian, Gong Shong, Li Chengfeng and the others also recognized Chu Yang's voice. It seems to be Junior Brother Chu's voice. It shouldn't be him. Gong Shong said, let's not talk about the others. If Junior Brother Chu were to scold someone, he should be scolding the Peak Master of the Divine Command Peak. If he were to scold the Peak Master, wouldn't he be exposed directly? Do you think Junior Brother Chu is so stupid? At this moment, Chu Renxian was extremely shocked. He was almost certain that this person was Chu Yang. Chapter 428. You must be that guy, Chu Yang. He pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger, and he has reached such a high realm. When the big meatball Jin Duo heard Chu Yang's voice, he immediately concluded that it was Chu Yang. His whole body bounced up like a ball. Who would think that he has such strength? If he didn't scold Sui Yunfu, who would believe that he scolded him? Brilliant, simply brilliant. Jin Duo admired Chu Yang to the extreme. He had just poked a big hole here, and it had not been repaired yet. On the other side, he directly poked the sky until it was about to collapse. Moreover, even if they knew that it was his voice, they would not suspect him. In addition to these people, many people also thought of Chu Yang. Sui Yunfu, the Peak Master of the Divine Command Peak, Long Face, the Peak Master of the Heavenly Array Peak, and other Peak Masters present. Also, the Guardian Elder who was kneeling on the ground quivered the moment he heard Chu Yang's voice. It was as if ice water was poured directly from his head. It was cold to the bone. He thought that it was Chu Yang, but he had no evidence to prove it. If it was Chu Yang, this Chu Yang was too frightening. Chu Yang saw the scene of the Five Elements sect being turned upside down clearly through the light shield. He even saw the discussion between Chu Na, Chu Renxian, and the others. Immediately, his heart thumped and almost jumped out of his chest. Oh my heavens, we're really done for this time. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Accompanied by the impact of the ripples in the void, bursts of buzzing sounds were also heard. Tyrannical consciousnesses were about to descend, which made Chu Yang's liver tremble again. Fortunately, at this time, a formation appeared in the small area under his feet. A transmission door less than half a meter high appeared. The five-colored light flowed, and it looked like a beautiful dog hole. This was because the space was too narrow, and the person who set up this formation was simply a genius. There were words on the side of the transmission door. Don't panic, fellow thieves, the wonderful journey of a godly thief is about to begin. Please go through the dog hole to create a glorious scene. Please crawl through the dog hole, you bastard. Although you are a genius, although you are a kindred spirit, Chu Yang still has the heart to kill. As for the dog hole, he wouldn't mind even if it was a mouse hole, let alone a dog hole. He hurriedly shrank his body and crawled into the dog hole. With a swoosh, he drilled in. The moment his figure disappeared, rumbling sounds could be heard. Several consciousnesses descended like lightning, appearing in this place. Unfortunately, they could not see or sense anything. Not here. The tyrannical consciousness let out such a doubtful voice, appearing to be extremely surprised. The initial fluctuations of the formation should have come from here. Another surprised voice sounded. Could it be that someone deliberately confused us? It's obvious that it's impossible to capture any traces of the formation here. Perhaps we've really been misled, and this amount of time is enough for that person to escape. Could it really be the Soul Devourer clan? Why are they so lowly? The person who spoke was somewhat in disbelief. If the big shots of the Soul Devourer clan were so lowly, then it would be too shocking. They might not necessarily be lowly. Perhaps they are deliberately humiliating us. What happened in the Five Elements sect today was very big. There were probably not many people who didn't know about it. These tyrannical consciousnesses obviously knew very clearly. If it's the Soul Devourer clan, I'm afraid the humiliation is secondary. Perhaps they are testing our strength. It seems that we've really let the Soul Devourer clan be too presumptuous these past few years. Today, a small core disciple actually dares to come alone and cause trouble. Me. Suddenly, a voice let out a cold snort. Without some people in the sect, would they dare to do this? The Five Elements sect can have internal strife, but bringing in other sects, persecuting fellow disciples, and even disregarding the sect's reputation, these people should be warned. A voice finally made the final decision, filled with dense killing intent. Chapter 429. Kaka. The sound of wood and metal, as well as the sound of joints, was as dense as raindrops. It was as if heavy rain was pouring down, drowning Chu Yang's ears. In his eyes, countless puppets were imprinted in them. There were humanoid puppets, one after another, as they rushed into his eyes. His pupils seemed to be about to explode. In a trance, he felt as if all the stars in the sky had suddenly appeared in front of him. The sky full of stars, densely packed together, all rushed into his eyes. As expected, there are many like-minded people. Your description is too accurate. I can't help but admire you more. Chu Yang gritted his teeth, and Xiao Guari also cried out. Kaka. The humanoid puppets were either holding sabers or swords. Sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, tridents, whips, hammers, etc. There were all 18 types of weapons. The weapons in each puppet's hands were simple, direct, and violent. There were also some that were breathing fire, water, thunder, wind, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, the five elements, wind, thunder, darkness, light, all kinds of elemental energy, bombarding down. There were even some that were setting up formations. Close combat, long-range attacks, all kinds of methods were used. They were organized as one, like a magnificent army with thousands of men and horses. The puppets were all at the 5th level of the Chi Soul realm, the same as Chu Yang's cultivation. However, with such a large number, such comprehensive methods, and such a shocking scene, Chu Yang felt his scalp go numb. How many nails can a body made of iron be crushed? This time, he would soon know the answer. Xiao Guari, you throw the firecrackers. Xiao Liu, you set up the formation. Xiao Hei, you absorb the elemental energy of heaven and earth to replenish your elemental energy. Wang. Along with the elemental energies of the five elements, the elemental energies that countered each other collided and exploded, forming a sharp cone of destruction. Then, it changed into a huge pentagram, and with a hum, it spun at high speed, protecting Chu Yang. Kaka. The sound of the puppets' joints being stiff was drowned out. However, as long as the puppets or their attacks met the pentagram, they were all cut apart like a piece of paper. There was no suspense at all. Slowly, the star-like puppets were lined up to be disposed of like trash, chopped up and burned like firewood. The construction of the pentagram anti-heaven star is truly astonishing. Even with such a concentrated attack, the attacks of an army of thousands of men and horses were unable to affect it in the slightest. In fact, the spinning speed of the pentagram anti-heaven star only increased. Chu Yang secretly shivered in his heart, but the consumption of true essence was truly frightening. There were very few people like him, who had an extremely dense true essence to support such a circulation. Yah! A ball of light appeared above each of Little Cub's claws, twisting violently as the power of earth and fire within them raged. It was as if two extremely close explosive bunkers were about to crash into each other due to the earthquake. Boom! Boom! Following Little Guari's cries, two balls of light suddenly exploded in the middle of the group of puppets. It was as if two large suns had risen. The power of earth was like heavy marbles that splattered in all directions, penetrating and bombarding everything. The flames swept over, burning everything in its path. The sky was filled with puppets, and two huge vacuum spaces appeared in the middle. The power was also extremely shocking. Amidst the continuous buzzing and explosions, the pentagram cut through everything tirelessly. Little Guari kept throwing explosions. By the time the two of them were about to collapse from fatigue, all the puppets had been swept clean. However, this was just the beginning. Rumble. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,